क्या हुआ? चाबी है. Good evening once again. Right. So, any doubts you want to ask from last class? Or let me give you a recap. Let me give you a recap on what we studied yesterday. You were not there yesterday. What's your name? I forgot. Rizam Firdos. Which state? Online students, I hope you can hear me. Today we are going to learn something about, not something, we are going to learn fundamental rights. Today we'll be discussing various aspects of fundamental rights. I hope you have the Constitution with you. Yesterday I made a request that if you can bring the Constitution, it will help you. Anyway, those who do not have can share, or you have the mobile with you, whichever article is there, then you can type and see. But before discussing the today's, or before starting this, please come. Before starting today's class, first of all, let me ask you any doubts which you have. Anything you want to have clarification? Any doubts which have come? Yes. Liberty and freedom, no difference. There may be yes. No. Because if you see from Article 19 onwards, what is the heading? Right to freedom. So the Constitution uses liberty as well as freedom. So don't go by the difference. I don't think that there is a difference between liberty and freedom. If at all there is a difference, it might be difference of degree, or let's say grammatical difference. One word might be a verb, one might be something, an adjective, something like that. As far as I am aware, there is no difference as such. Don't worry about that. The Constitution uses both liberty as well as freedom. Right. Article 21 uses the word liberty. Other article uses freedom. Both can be used interchangeably. Don't worry. I will go home and I'll try to find out if at all there are some differences. Apart from the English language, the spelling is different. The meaning is same. Don't worry. Freedom or liberty, whatever that might be, is absence of unreasonable restraint. Right. That is the fundamental aspect. Anything else? Good evening, Avinash, Vijayalal and others. Anything else you want to ask? No. We started with the term state. We understood various aspects of states, various characteristics of states, sovereignty, government, territory and population. We discussed the concept of popular sovereignty. We discussed various types of government, democratic and non-democratic. Then we raised this question that whether there can be absolute sovereignty. When the government is the manifestation or the instrument of exercising sovereignty, can the government have absolute sovereignty? When we discussed the term absolute sovereignty or unlimited sovereignty, we came across another related term, constitutionalism. We discussed that constitutionalism fundamentally aims at limited government. Constitutionalism can be found in written constitutions or unwritten constitutions. The type of constitution, the nature of constitution do not matter. You can have a federal constitution, you can have a unitary constitution, republican constitution, constitutional monarchy, whatever that might be. You may find or you may not find constitutionalism there. One of the essential aspects of constitutionalism is rule of law. Okay, one individual is asking, student is asking, sir, can we say due process of law also include procedure established by law. Technically, due process, the concept of due process of law is different from procedure established by law. These are two different concepts. Right? In due process of law, there is a procedural due process. Procedural due process is not your procedure established by law. You see, when you apply the procedure established by law, when the court apply the doctrine of procedure established by law, then the individual's liberty will have protection only in the context of administrative action. In other words, when procedure established by law is used, the only option for the court to check the validity of that action of the administration is whether there is a law and the law provides a procedure. If the administration does not follow the procedure given by that law, then the court can hold that the administration has violated the law. So when when procedure established by law is used, only the legality of the administrative action is looked into. Legality of administrative action, which means the civil service or the bureaucracy, their actions are scrutinized from the point of view of law made by the legislature. So the scope of judicial review when procedure established by law is used is very limited. And it is limited only to the actions, omissions or commissions of administration. That is why it is said when procedure established by law is used, then individual liberty is protected only from the tyranny of the administration. But when due process of law is used, the individual, the citizen is protected not only from the administrative tyranny but also from the legislative tyranny, because the law will also be scrutinized. Remember, whether the parliament or the legislature has the power to make that law, is it right to make that law? This question will be asked. Right? So conceptually these two are different. Procedure established by law is different and due process of law is different conceptually. Right? You can say that in the jurisprudence means the decisions of the courts with respect to constitutional matters and others. When we see the evolution of rights of people, rights we are using in the context of Indian context, let's say fundamental right. From the commencement of the Indian Constitution, the Supreme Court took a narrow view of the fundamental rights. Hence, the doctrine which was used was procedure established by law. But as time progressed, in late 1970s, the Supreme Court decided to use something known as due process of law, which expanded the scope of judicial review and resulted into protection of the rights of individuals and citizens. So now, not only the court will look into whether there is a procedure and the administration has followed the procedure which is sanctioned by the law, whether the law is valid or not, whether the concerned legislature should have made that law. In other words, questioning so-called wisdom. There are some no-go areas which the legislature cannot go. For example, basic structure, 1973. Basic structure of the Constitution cannot be amended. There are some laws which let's say I explained right to privacy as a fundamental right. If a law is made to curtail or let's say abolish this right to privacy as a fundamental right, then it will violate. So due process. We'll understand this when we study fundamental right. We'll see Article 12 and 13. The fundamental idea behind Article 13 is that whether law is a constitutional amendment. We'll understand this, how the court's jurisprudence has evolved. As the society and the state, that is Indian state, matured, the rights which are available to individuals have increased. You must have studied about something known as first generation right, second generation right, third generation, fourth generation, something like that. But anyway, these two are different things. Under constitutionalism, we studied rule of law. We studied that rule of law is more or less synonymous with the equality before law. But one fundamental difference is that as per the traditional classical conceptualization of rule of law, rights are pre-constitutional. But in Indian context, rights are given by the Constitution. The Constitution of India is the source of rights of individuals. We also understood what is the meaning of natural justice. We also studied various aspects of rights. Natural rights, we understood moral rights, civil rights, political right, constitutional right, fundamental right, others, right? And after that, we went into looking into the economic aspect of state, which means the intervention, the nature and type of intervention in economy by the state. We classified the system into three: in general, capitalist system, and the socialism. We also studied various aspects of socialism. Then we studied communism. Then we understood the differences between all these three. Then we studied how the Gandhian conception of state. Gandhi wanted a non-state polity. Gandhi advocated something known as enlightened anarchy or organized anarchy. We also found out the similarity between Marx and Gandhi, equality, individual autonomy, and statelessness, but there are fundamental differences. One advocated violence and the other non-violence. One revolutionary approach, if you see Gandhi's approach, has been, what do we say, some more or less evolutionary, because Gandhi wants that people's hearts and minds should be changed. Isn't it? So, Gandhi view state as the coercive authority. Then we told some questions, the previous question also. Today we are going to study the topic of fundamental right. Fundamental rights are important from the point of view of PT. You will get questions in fundamental from this part. We study some important aspects of fundamental rights. Some article we will study. Then we will solve the questions, previous year's questions and other practice questions. We'll start one by one, in the sense that we'll start from Article 12 of the Constitution. Before that, a general introduction on fundamental rights. As I mentioned yesterday, fundamental rights means what? Those rights available, those rights which are mentioned in the Part 3 of the Constitution are fundamental rights. So fundamental rights act as a limitation on the power of the state, power of the government. Fundamental rights can be negative as well as positive. Positive fundamental rights means those rights which ask the state to do something. When we go through the article, you will understand this. Negative means it prevents the state. Whenever the word is like the state shall not, this means negative rights. Some rights are there which ask the state to do. Some rights are, most of the rights in the Constitution, Part 3, are self-executory. Self-executory means there is no need for bringing a law or any other action from the government. Article 14 simply says what? No person. The state, there will be what? Equality before law and equal protection of law. So Article 14 itself provides that equality. There is no need for bringing a law. So whenever some provisions, some rights are available by virtue of their mentioning or presence in the Constitution, in Part 3, then those rights are known as self-executory rights. When some rights will be available to you only when a corresponding law is made, then such rights are known as non-self-executory. Article 21A of the Constitution. We will see that. Right to education. It says whenever this right will be available to individuals, when the government or the concerned legislature makes a law. 86 Amendment Act 2002 added 21A. But the right to education as a fundamental right became available to individuals only in 2009 when the Right to Education Act was enacted. So during this intervening period of almost 7 years, although fundamental rights was there in the Constitution, but it was not available because the right was not self-executory. Fundamental rights can be amended, yes, but fundamental rights can be amended. We'll study Article 13, then we will see the movement, the Supreme Court's judgment and others, right? Fundamental rights can be amended, fundamental rights, but those amendments cannot take away the basic features. So, amendability of the fundamental rights is limited by this basic structure doctrine. And fundamental rights essentially promotes what is known as political democracy. Political democracy means the opportunity and as well as the rights which are available to people to participate in political process. Political process, how can you participate? One example I can give, political parties. Political parties are the essence of democratic process or political process. So Article 19(1) Clause C provides you the fundamental right from association. Just giving one example, right? And Part 3, this fundamental rights also promote something known as liberal democracy, because the individuals' freedoms are given, freedom to individual are given in Part 3, which also promotes what? Liberal democracy, because the individual. The fundamental rights also captures the tension or conflict between the need for individual advancement and the need for social control. Social control as well as individual advancement. The individual wants to break out, break away from all the chains. Individual wants to experience absolute freedom, near absolute freedom. But if that happens, then there will not be no order in society. So the social structure will break down, which may even lead to anarchy or breaking down of the state. So fundamental rights are not absolute. So some controls are placed on fundamental rights. But these controls cannot be arbitrary. We'll study that in Article 19 and others. Those restrictions which are placed on fundamental rights of individuals should be reasonable. The doctrine of reasonableness is there. We'll study that. So essentially, fundamental rights under Part 3 also leads to supremacy of the Constitution. You see, there are multiple ways of looking at this Part 3. I am trying to provide you some, what we say. I am trying to give multiple dimensions, multiple perspectives. There is a meaning. Yesterday, one student asked about, I think, supremacy of the Constitution. Supremacy of the Constitution essentially means what? Supremacy of the Constitution essentially means that the Parliament cannot amend the Constitution in such a way that the essential identity is gone. Supremacy of the Constitution means limiting the amending power of the Parliament. Limiting the amending power, one. Number two, supremacy of the Constitution means presence of judicial review. An independent judiciary having the power of judicial review. If entire Part 3 can be removed by the Parliament by amending or repealing, then there is no supremacy of the Constitution. Part 3, fundamental rights are available against the state. Always remember this. State and in general state, but also against private individual. We'll see that. But in general, fundamental rights are available against the state. Fundamental rights limits the power of the state. Fundamental rights limits the power of the state because it prohibits the state from doing something. And not only that, the word state has been expansively construed. Article 12 of the Constitution. Do you have Constitution with you? Open Article 12. Article 12 of the Constitution. Fast. You can use your mobile and type. This is necessary, Constitution. Does Lakshmikant have? Yes, you can use it. No problem. But I recommend this because you can write, there are many case laws, etc. This one, the Constitution of India. It's only 160, 170, something like that. You can afford to buy this, isn't it? You should buy. Although I cannot demand it, but it will help you. This I can guarantee. Article 12. Definition. Definition of what? In this part, online students, you can also use this material. In this part, unless the context otherwise requires, the state includes the government and Parliament of India. So state means what? The government of India, Parliament of India, government and the legislature of each of the states or local or other authorities within the territory of India under the control of government of India. Simply means the word state. The word state has been interpreted or written down. The word state does not only mean the government. The word state, according to Article 12, does not only mean the legislature, the parliament, state legislature. No, the state is expansively defined. So, definition of state under Article 12. You see, there is a word known as other authorities. It simply means the word state has been interpreted or defined elaboratively. Now, can you tell me why? If the definition of the state is limited only to the government, state governments and the union government, or the parliament and the state legislature, and it does not cover the administration, the civil service, the police, the autonomous institutions, the statutory bodies, the regulatory bodies, right? And the public sector undertaking, etc., etc. What will happen then? Absolutely, yes. Because your fundamental rights are against the state in general. If the state is defined very narrowly, then other agencies can violate your right. The reason why the state is defined expansively in an elaborate manner is because all these entities, institutions can be brought under the purview of Part 3. That is the reason Article 12 says state has to be construed. What? Elaboratively, expansively. So, you will have state, the government, the ministry, the departments, the legislature, the Lok Sabha, the parliament, similarly this legislature, the police, various department, authorities, regulatory bodies, statutory bodies, all these are state. Public sector undertaking, this LIC, ONGC, all those PSUs. But remember, this definition is not an exhaustive definition. It's an illustrative definition. Exhaustive means there cannot be anything apart from this. No. This is an open-ended definition, which means multiple other entities, agencies can be brought into the definition of state. Even private sector enterprises are also being brought under the definition of state, provided they carry out public duties. Let me ask you one question. Have you heard about these aspects of contracting out, outsourcing? Which agency provides power in Delhi? The government of Delhi, the union government, or any private entity? No. Distribution. Distribution is done by who? Type your mobile, you will understand. Who distributes power in Delhi? Who? Government, private sector. If it is private sector, which company? Delhi Transco. What are they? Are they government agency or private? Tata Power. What are they? Tata Power, this Indraprastha Limited, Adani Power, which is giving power in. Earlier, all these activities were taken or conducted by the government or their agencies. Now we have adopting something called privatization, contracting out. You must have heard about PPP. Earlier, the state, the government used to do everything. Now it is either privatization or contracting out or something called private-public partnership, public-private partnership. So, when a government enters into partnership with the private sector and after a service is provided to people like water provision, transport, electricity and others, If your fundamental rights are violated by that private party, then what will happen? The court, yes, the court has said that there are some functions which the state are supposed to do. Just because state has hived off, or put it differently, have given the contract or outsourced to the private sector does not matter. So these entities are also part of state. I am going to read one judgment of the Supreme Court. That is why I have told you that you should have this. Now, this is judgment of the Supreme Court. In that, there is a judgment known as Ajay Hasia. Don't worry, we are not dealing with means. But anyway, point is that the Supreme Court has laid down whether a particular authority can be state or not. If it is state, then it can be brought under Part 3. Writ can be Article 32, writ petition. BCCI, whether state or not. Absolutely not. People approach Supreme Court, the Delhi High Court. BCCI said we are not state. Yes, that is the law at this point in time. Because they said that we have registered under a trust or society. We are not a state, and the court accepted that. Now, if BCCI is a state for the meaning of Article 12, then I am a cricket player. I want to play cricket. I want to, let's say this T20 World Cup is coming. So, right. Yes, Vinash. I am a cricket player. I want to play the T20 World Cup. But the selection committee did not take me. Right? So, can I go to the court saying that my fundamental rights is violated? I am discriminated. Article 14 is violated. I am discriminated because I am from Kerala. And others from the other part of the country. Article 14 violated, right to equality. So, if BCCI is a state, this can happen. If the sports bodies are state, then this will happen. I mean, whenever multiple activities are taken, selection, I am giving an example. When there is selection, people who are excluded, they can use this Part 3 of the Constitution and challenge those decisions. So essentially, it means that the sport governing body may not be able to work properly. The professional decisions of the BCCI will be what? Stopped, or the BCCI will not be able to conduct its affairs properly, because most of the time they will have to do what? Fight court cases. But anyway, the point I am trying to make is that, personally speaking, I would say either BCCI should be a state, because it represents the Indian team and everything. It has huge control. But anyway, if at all BCCI is not a state, then at least bring the BCCI under RTI, so that some kind of transparency is there. Whatever that might be. I am going to read some points in order to understand what is a state. If the entire share capital of the corporation is held by the government, a corporation, public undertaking or a company, entire share capital with the government, then state. Financial assistance of the state is so much as to meet almost entire expenditure. State is providing financial assistance, government is providing financial assistance. If you have, the page number is 16, this Constitution of India. If you have bought something else, then I cannot help. I told you this. This is bare act small, na? I don't know whether, this is small one. Your book is big. But anyway, you have that, na? 16, yes. Don't worry, you will find that, or let's hear it. No, it's not necessary as far as PT is concerned, but keep this in mind. Financial assistance by the state. Let's say that there is a company or corporation whose day-to-day affairs, administration, everything is depending upon the finance of the government. Then definitely state. Then it says, corporation enjoys monopoly status. Monopoly. Which means, let's say here in Delhi, the power is, the electricity is supplied only by only one private entity, only one. Nothing else is there. So when a corporation enjoys monopoly, then it can also be come under the definition of state. If the functions of the corporation of public importance, functions of the corporation, functions of the company or private sector, whatever that might be, is public function. Let's say metro. All of you have traveled in metro. You must have seen that apart from the CRPF security personnel, you have come across private security. Private security? Yes or no? Private security. They don't have the arms, but they have a different uniform. Even private security also you will find in airports. So this private security, they are doing what? Security function. Managing the crowd and others. Whose function is to manage security or maintain security or law and order? State function. Sovereign function. But here, who's doing or helping, whatever that might be? Private. So that private entity are doing sovereign functions. Then also it will become under state. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Especially in India, when most of the function which the state earlier carried out, the government earlier carried out are being carried out by private sector, either independently or through PPP or through contracting out or outsourcing, whatever that might be. Hence, all these entities should be coming under what? The definition of state. Because fundamental rights are available against state. If the functions of the state is reduced, state cannot say that earlier these are the functions of the state. Now because of privatization, PPP and others, function has become this, reduced function. And these functions are carried out by ABC corporation or company. But ultimately they are carrying out those functions which are sovereign functions or state function. Earlier transport, state transport. Telecommunication, state telecommunication. Insurance, only state. Banking, only state. But the point is that when the state cannot say, the government cannot say that we are not doing, others are doing, hence fundamental rights are not applicable to them. The state cannot take shelter in the argument that we are not doing, it is done by them, so fundamental rights will not be applicable. Remember, the point is that even if private sector entities and other agencies are doing functions which are essentially state functions, they will come under part 3. Otherwise, private sector will violate your rights. Social media. You have freedom of speech and expression. Where? Under Article 19. What if you want to express yourself in social media? Let's say you this WhatsApp or Facebook or Twitter, etc. And you are not allowed by the social media companies. Your tweet is withheld. Your account is blocked, suspended. Your posts are removed by Facebook. Your freedom of speech and expression violated? Yes or no? Can you go to the court by saying that I have freedom of speech and expression in part 3 of the Constitution and 19(1)(a)? It is violated by this Facebook and Twitter and others. They will say we are not state. So the writ will not lie to us. It is our policy, private sector entities, a Facebook policy that this kind of tweet or post, whatever that might be, will not be published. We will not allow. We will not allow. That is our internal policy. We have nothing to do with the Constitution. Because we are a private sector entity. So we are not state. Can they say so? When there is technology revolution, when there are modern means of communication, in this context it is necessary to see or view the term state in an elaborative, expansive manner. The Supreme Court of India in the recent judgment, Kaushal Kishore versus not Kaushal Kishore, what is the judgment? Yes, Kaushal Kishore versus State of UP. Remember, Kaushal Kishore judgment, this judgment, the judgment 1 year before. The Supreme Court has interpreted Article 12 in a very expansive manner. It meant that, simply understand this, the Kaushal Kishore judgment of the Supreme Court resulted into expansive interpretation of Article 12. Essentially meant more private sector entities carrying out different functions, including social media intermediaries, have been brought into the definition of state. I used to give the example. One advocate was there whose Twitter account has been suspended by this Twitter. He went to the High Court of Delhi. No, Prashant Bhushan. Sanjay Hegde. The name is not important. Not Prashant Bhushan. So this individual went to High Court of Delhi. But the argument taken by the Twitter was this: we are not a state. This case was going on for almost 2 years. But after the Kaushal Kishore judgment, within 1 day, Twitter restored the account of Sanjay Hegde. Because they knew that the judgment is there, then they cannot act that way. When the private sector has a greater role in your life, especially all those factors, all those facets of your life, including freedom of speech and expression, right to life. Most of the people work in private sector. We have a right to life, isn't it? Right to life. Right to life under Article 21 is also interpreted as right to livelihood. What if the private sector uses this approach? Hire and fire. No job security. The private sector has significant imprint on your life. Earlier, state had control. Now the private sector has. Isn't it? This mobile has become a significant part of you. It has become an organ. Isn't it? So you are using the medium of social media or the mobile to exercise your fundamental right. Hence, the entities, the agencies, the private sector which are operating or controlling this sector should also be brought under the definition of state. But it should be done in such a way that their operational freedom, business freedom, economic freedom are not violated or undermined. Kaushal Kishore judgment has expanded the scope of horizontal right in the Constitution. Horizontal right means those rights which are available against private sector. By expansively interpreting the Article 12 of the Constitution, the rights which are available under Article 19 and Article 21 are available against private sector also. Very important. I am saying the rights which are available against the state under Article 19 and 21 are available against private sector also, which essentially means writ petition can be filed. I have a right to livelihood. I have been removed from the organization, private sector. As it stands, the individual can go to the court through writ petition. We will study Article 32 later. Are you able to understand what I am trying to say? The term state has to be interpreted expansively. When the private sector has a significant imprint on your life, liberty and others, freedom of speech and expression and others, they should also be brought under the definition of state. But it should be done in a manner that does not undermine their economic freedom. Are you able to understand? That is why state has been interpreted very expansively. Article 13 of the Constitution deals with what? 13. I am going to read Article 13. Laws inconsistent with or in derogation of the fundamental rights. All laws in force in the territory of India immediately before the commencement of this Constitution, insofar as they are inconsistent with the provision of this part, shall to the extent and consistency be void. Don't worry, don't read, listen. What does Article 13 say? It essentially says this. No law can be made which either takes away or abridges your fundamental right. Takes away means what? Repeal, entirely taken away. Abridges means reduce. Now, let me ask you one thing. If the term law, if defined very expansively, like the state, what will be the impact of impact on the fundamental rights of individuals? Do we have larger scope for fundamental rights or lesser scope of fundamental rights? Article 13 says no law can be made which violate the fundamental rights available in Part 3. So, the meaning of law or what is law will decide the extent of availability of fundamental rights. If the law is defined narrowly, are you understanding what I am trying to say? If the law is defined narrowly, what will be its impact on fundamental rights? Whether we will have larger scope for exercising our fundamental rights or our fundamental rights will be limited. Limited. If law means only parliament made law, restrictively defining. If law means only parliamentary made law, not state legislature made law, then parliamentary law cannot violate fundamental right. What about the law made by the state legislature? They can violate or not? What if we say the law means parliamentary law as well as state law? Now what about circular, notification, regulation, rule, ordinance? Can they violate? When there is Independence Day or Republic Day, generally traffic advisories, traffic regulations have been given by the police. If traffic regulations are not law under Article 13, then the police can issue any kind of traffic regulation. Any kind of traffic regulation can be issued. And even if they violate our fundamental right, we cannot go to court because these traffic regulations are not law under Article 13. But what if the law is defined expansively, which means the law includes parliament made law, statute, state legislature law, rules made by the government, regulations made by the administration, the bylaws, ordinances, circular, notification, UPSC notification, notices, and there are multiple other instruments, bylaws, multiple such instruments are there. That is the reason, similarly, the state has to be defined expansively, the law has to be defined elaboratively. So the law in Article 13 is not defined in a narrow manner, but a very broad manner. Remember, it is also illustrative, not exhaustive. If you see Article 13, you will find the law is defined expansively. The reason being, because law can violate, no law can violate the fundamental right. So the reason the law has to be construed expansively is because then only the fundamental rights will be properly available to the citizens and others. Are you able to understand? But Article 13 is very important from other point of view also. What is that? It says something like, if there is a pre-constitutional law, a law which is made, which is before the enactment of the Constitution. Put it differently, colonial law, something like that you can say. If these colonial laws violate Part 3, then what will happen? Whether colonial law, pre-constitutional laws are laws as per Article 13 or not? They should be or they should not be? Should be, why? Absolutely. You know that the colonial state was a police state. The fundamental idea behind the lawmaking by the colonial state is to control the people, to suppress the people. So generally, most of the laws will be what? Restricting or controlling the rights of people. So we have fundamental rights after the commencement of the Constitution. So all those laws should also be judged from the point of view of fundamental rights. But it is also true that some provisions of the colonial laws may be consistent with the provisions of the Constitution. Fundamental rights are absolute or not? No. Which means fundamental rights can be restricted. So the pre-colonial, pre-independence laws have some provisions which do not violate fundamental right, which are restricting fundamental right, which are acceptable because fundamental rights are not absolute. But there are some provisions in that law, colonial laws, which are not restriction, which simply mean that if those laws are implemented, then you cannot have your fundamental right. Such provisions of those laws should be what? Removed. The exact word which are used is severed. Severing. Sever. What is the meaning? Cutting down. Article 13 of the Constitution also provides for a doctrine known as Doctrine of Severability. Doctrine of Severability. Why severability? What if a doctrine? What if a doctrine? Doctrine means set of principle. Severability. Severability. A doctrine is a set of principle used by the judiciary for judicial review. Due process of law, doctrine. Procedure established by law, doctrine. Doctrine of severability. Severability. By applying the doctrine of severability, the court can see whether the particular law, by removing those provisions which are in violation to part 3, can survive or not. So, doctrine of severability can be applied. Those provisions of a law which violate part 3 can be removed, and other provisions which are not violative can survive. This doctrine of severability is not only applicable to pre-colonial laws, even post-independence laws and even amendment to the Constitution. You must have heard about this cooperative societies. 97th Amendment Act. 97th Constitutional Amendment Act 2011. What it did essentially, it amended Article 19 of the Constitution. It made the right to form cooperative as a fundamental right. Number 1, it added Article 43B into the Constitution. We study the DPSP later. It also added Part 9B into the Constitution. Part 9B. Part 9B dealt with various aspects of cooperative societies, how the society should be governed, whether there should be election or not, how it should be managed, etc., etc. Remember, cooperative societies are two, state cooperative and multi-state cooperative. So, state cooperatives means those cooperative societies which function with the territory of a state government. Multi-state means which has operation more than one state. Multi-state cooperatives are governed by who? Central government. Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act recently replaced. Multi-state cooperative societies. It says that only those. Yes, very good. Multi-state cooperative societies are governed by Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act by the central government. State cooperative governed by state government. The lawmaking power with respect to cooperatives, which are state cooperatives, are with who? State legislature. But 97th Amendment added this Part 9B of the Constitution into the Constitution, which essentially encroached upon the legislative power of the state government. There are two ways of making amendment to the Constitution. Three ways for that matter. Article 358 says 2. The Supreme Court said the amendment made into the Constitution by this 97th Constitutional Amendment Act did not seek the consent of the states. Because you can make a law on state list when there are multiple grounds are there. But if you want to make amendment to the Constitution, because if you see Article 358, which we will study later, Article 358 says special majority in both the Houses of Parliament and at least half of the states should consent, where there are some 6 to 7 grounds. One is that dealing with Schedule 7 of the Constitution. Cooperative societies who state list. But the provisions under the 9B essentially curtailed, restricted, encroached upon the lawmaking power of state with respect to cooperative societies. The Supreme Court applied doctrine of severability. Supreme Court said in 9B, those provisions dealing with multi-state cooperative societies and those provisions dealing with state cooperative. Supreme Court struck down these provisions. These were severed from Part 9b. Are you able to understand what is doctrine of severability? Severability is applicable not only to pre-colonial laws, it is also applicable within one law. Simply says that there are conflicts. So if it is possible to make the law function provided those provisions are removed. Doctrine of severability can be applied to constitutional amendment. Doctrine of severability can be applied to law. Doctrine of severability can be applied to pre-colonial, pre-independence law also. Are you able to understand what I am trying to say?
So before this amendment, the state cooperative had their own laws.
Yes. Even today, state cooperatives have their own laws because the amendment was struck down.
But this gave constitutional status. How can it be violating the
Supremacy of the Constitution means Parliament's power to amend the Constitution is limited. Whatever power is there for the Parliament to amend, it should follow the proper procedure. Article 370 judgment, have you read that? How many of you are attending the ED class which I am taking? 8-hole discussion. If you are not attending and you are losing. Article 370, the Supreme Court struck down one of the element in CO 272. CO means Constitutional Order 272. Because CO 272 amended 357. What is 357? Interpretation of Constitution. It converted the CA to LA. CA means Constitutional Assembly to Legislative Assembly. But this conversion should have been done through 358. It did not do. So procedure was not followed. In CC, constitutional sanction in any case does not guarantee what? Development of that agency or entity. Cooperatives are local institutions, which means local control is required. The central government can provide broad guidelines and policy, should not micromanage. 73rd and 74th Amendment works in this way. Optional function, mandatory function. We'll study that later. For the time being, understand doctrine of severability. There are multiple other doctrines also. If I say, let's put it this way. If I say doctrine of severability is a doctrine used by the Supreme Court or the High Court for that matter for judicial review. Is it true? What is the meaning of judicial review? Judicial review is the power exercised by the judiciary to examine the constitutionality of the law and constitutionality and legality of the administrative action. A law made by the Parliament for that matter will be tested whether it is as per the Constitution. An action taken by the administration will be tested whether there is a law or violates law, or not only that, does it violate the Constitution also. So judicial review. Judicial review, the court uses multiple doctrines or principles. One doctrine is doctrine of severability. There are multiple other doctrines. Number one. Number two is doctrine of pith and substance. I am teaching you because, you see, UPSC have the habit of taking this question, because these things have not asked. But in mains, they have asked once. So, they are making your life difficult. In the sense that just reading the text which you read generally may not be enough. So, because the material which you already have. So, if I teach you that, then there is the point of this class. The purpose of this class is to tell you something which you do not know, but which are important. You understood doctrine of severability. Second doctrine is doctrine of pith and substance. Doctrine of pith and substance. I am using D. Pith and substance. Pith and substance essentially mean essence of something or true nature of something. For the time being, just understand this. We will study that later when we study friend-state relation. But for the time being, understand. Doctrine of pith and substance is used by the court to find out the legislative competency of the legislature. Legislative competency. What is it? Legislative competency. Essentially mean which legislature has the power to make law. Schedule 7 is there or not? There are three lists: union list, state list, concurrent list. In general, I mean, the union can make law in union list, state can make law in normal situation in state list, concurrent list both can make law. Concurrent, see. It is possible that a law made by the state might encroach upon the legislative domain of the union. It is possible that the law made by the union might encroach upon the legislative domain of who? State. Sorry, the law made by the union might encroach upon state list, law made by the state might encroach upon union list. It might be possible that both laws cannot be implemented. So, it can go to court. So, the fundamental idea will be who have the competency. Competency means legislative law-making power. Who have the competency to make the law. The Supreme Court will use this pith and substance. It will see whether the true nature of that law, the fundamental objective of that law, the fundamental subject of that law lies where. Whether it lies in union list or whether it lies in state list. If the essence of that law lies in state list, then the state made law will be upheld. Are you getting what I am trying to say? Police, let me give you an example. Police is a state subject or not? But police has the police uses arms and ammunition. Arms and ammunition is which list? Union list. So when a law is made with respect to police training, or let's say police per se, it will also deal with arms and ammunition. But arms and ammunition is union list. Conflict might happen. Can happen that conflict. So conflicting law cannot be implemented. But the court will use this pith and substance. When the union challenges this law made by the state, claiming that they are encroaching upon my power to make law, arms and ammunition, the court will see whether there is actual encroachment or not. What is the intent of this law? What is the subject the law is trying to make? The court will see, okay, they are essentially dealing with police. The encroachment is accidental, incidental, unintentional. So, the state law will be upheld. Are you able to understand? If, after using this pith and substance, the court finds out that although they are trying to make law on police, but if you read it properly, then essentially the idea is to deal with arms and ammunition. Although prima facie, it will look that this law deals with police, but if you read in between lines properly, then the ultimate aim or objective essence is dealing with arms and ammunition. Which means the state is trying to make a law on a subject which is arms and ammunition, on which it does not have power. Right? So, the court will say that this legislation is a colorable legislation. Doctrine of colorable legislation. See, pith and substance mean essence of a law. If the essence of a law is police, and there are some peripheral provisions dealing with arms and ammunition, no problem. It can happen because police uses arms and ammunition. Not a problem, but essentially deal with police, pith and substance, police state subject, valid. Constitutional. Clear or not? But after looking at the law, the court finds out that although the name is police, etc., but essentially deal with arms and ammunition, which is a union list. So in union list, the state cannot make law. State does not have the legislative competence. So pith and substance lies here in union. So you don't have the legislative competency to make law. So when you don't have the power to make something directly, when you cannot do something directly, then you are trying to do it indirectly. Then you are committing something known as the sin of colorable legislation. When you don't have the power to do something directly, you cannot do it indirectly also. Supreme Court will strike down the legislation saying that this is a colorable legislation. Doctrine of colorable. Colorable exercise of power. Colorable means misleading, improper, false. In case of conflict, only the union law will prevail. I'll explain that, don't worry, in center-state relation. For the time being, understand this. The doctrine which used by the court to decide the validity of the state law or union law are different in the context of concurrent list and union list and state list. Remember, the pith and substance is used to find out the legislative competency with respect to union list and state list. I am saying doctrine of pith and substance does not have any connection or relation with concurrent list. Have I used the word concurrent list in all the discussion? No. Because in concurrent list, both have competency. State can make law, union can make law or not. Both have competency. The question is not of legislative competency. So if there is no competency issue, then no pith and substance will arise. But it is possible that when in concurrent list, a law is made by the state, law made by the parliament, conflict can arise. Now which law will prevail? Because ultimately it is the state that has to implement the law made by the parliament in general. So both law cannot be implemented, conflict. Which law will prevail? Parliamentary law will prevail, but what if the concerned state reserve it for the consideration of the President and the President gives assent? Then the state law will prevail. Bring the constitution tomorrow, all of you, because if you have constitution, I would have taken you to Article 254 of the Constitution, but most of you don't have. But don't worry, we will study in center-state relation. For the time we understand. In concurrent list also conflict can arise. In union list and state list, the issue is not conflict. Issue is competency. Clear? Not conflict. I know that this is very difficult. This may sound difficult for you, but this is also available in YouTube. If you have some doubts, you can, let's say, watch it later, make notes, and you can ask me tomorrow. What I am trying to say is, when doctrine of pith and substance is applied, it will be applied only with respect to competency of the legislature. Which legislature has the power to make law? If the encroachment is accidental, incidental, unintentional, then law can be upheld. What if the encroachment or incidental encroachment is intentional? Essentially, you are trying to make a law in union list, which you cannot. So, doctrine of colorable legislation, the law will be struck down. But there is another problem. Problem is concurrent list. In concurrent list, both can make law. It is possible that conflict can arise. It happened. Where? Give an example. West Bengal, recent one. There is a law. This Real Estate Regulatory Authority, RERA Act, Parliamentary law. The Parliamentary law dealt with real estate, which is a concurrent list subject. West Bengal legislature also made a law on real estate with respect to this, RERA and others, which was in conflict with who? The Parliament made law. So ultimately the Supreme Court struck down the West Bengal law. Why? Because in general, when there is conflict between state law and union law in concurrent list, in general, the union law will prevail. Both are not same. Union law will prevail. But if the state law is reserved for the President's consideration, state bill, and the President grants assent, then in that state, the state law will prevail. But it does not prevent the Parliament to bring a new law or amend the existing law, which essentially means that this parliament law will prevail over that state also. Reserving by the state to the president and getting assent does not preclude the supremacy of union law on that subject. Are you able to understand or not? Reserving a bill in concurrent list to the president's assent and the assent is given by the president does not mean that the state's law will prevail over the parliamentary law always. Parliament can amend the law or bring a new law which will say that we are making it applicable to the who? The state. One political party, let's say, one political party at the center as well as the state. Right? This political party has brought a law in concurrent list, which the state running by the same political party feels that we should have a separate law dealing with the same subject, which is in conflict with the union law. But in general, this cannot function this way. So, the state government reserve it for the president. President will act as per the aid and advice of the council of minister. Same political party, assent is given. After election, political party changed. So, state, one political party, union, another political party. So, they can bring a different law which will say that we are making it applicable to you. Are you able to understand or not? But the question is, what is the extent of conflict? We are saying conflict can happen. But what is the level of conflict? The state law has provisions numbered A, B, C, D, E, F. State law has provisions numbered A, B, C, D, E, F. The union law has provisions numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there a conflict between the union law and the state law? There is a conflict with respect to numbering, form. One is using 1, 2, 3, 4, another is using A, B, C, D. Yes or no? One is using PDF, one is using another font. One is using the form of the law, typing. One is using A4, let's say this Arial. One is using Calibri. One law, the state law says a particular provision is given numbering A. This provision is given 8 in union law. Sequence is different. What is the extent of conflict? The state law has 8 pages. Union law has 10 pages. Conflict? Isn't it? But are there real conflicts? But apart from this numbering, format, etc., no other conflict. Essentially, the proportions are same. Sequence might be different. Still, there is conflict. But if it right to say that the union law will reign supreme, the form is different, the format is different, so the state law should not be held valid. It should be struck down. If it right to say, if the essence of both the laws are same, if the provisions are identical, but the difference or the conflict is only limited to the formatting, the numbering, the sequence and other very simple aspects. In order to decide the extent of conflict, Supreme Court has used a doctrine known as threshold of repugnancy. Conflict has another word known as repugnancy. Conflict का दूसरा word क्या है? Repugnancy. What is the meaning of repugnant? Repugnant means conflictual. So what is the extent of repugnancy between a union law and state law so that the state law cannot survive? If the repugnancy is a difference in the formatting is enough, or there should be higher threshold. If there is a very lower threshold, then every state law, if there is even minor differences, can be struck down. But the differences are very minimal, or let's say not fundamental. Then they can survive. Let me ask you one thing. If the threshold of repugnancy, or the bar of repugnancy, or the bar of conflict is kept high, then can the state law survive? If the bar is kept high, which means the threshold of repugnancy is kept high, it means that until and unless there are large number of conflictual provisions between these two laws, then both laws can survive, not a problem. This position is known as higher threshold. In higher threshold, both laws will survive or not. Higher threshold means in order to strike down a state law being conflictual or repugnant to the union law requires large number of conflicts. Conflicts in the format, numbering, sequence do not matter. Keeping a higher threshold will enable both the law to function. Supreme Court will look into the threshold of repugnancy. What is the threshold? What is the extent of conflict? Is it like that both the two laws are irreconcilable? I mean, the fundamental aspect of state law is against the union law. Both cannot work together. No scope. What is the extent of repugnancy? The extent of repugnancy is known as threshold of repugnancy. Earlier, the court has used very low threshold of repugnancy, which means even if there are differences in forms and formats and others, then the law will be struck down. But the threshold of repugnancy has been kept high at this point in time. It means that until and unless there are irreconcilable differences between the state law and the union law, both the law can prevail. Case to case basis we will see. I cannot, this is a hypothetical question. The court should, they should go to the court and the court will see. But we are dealing with theory and concept, right? But the point I am trying to make is, there can be repugnancy between state law and union law in concurrent list. Generally the union law will prevail. But if the threshold of repugnancy is very less, then the court can say or court can order, direct that both can function. Both will be operationalized. The concurrent list, both the state as well as union has power to make law. But because of the concurrent power, there can be conflicts. So in order to resolve these conflicts, the doctrine of repugnancy is used. Doctrine of repugnancy. Repugnancy means what? Conflict. Doctrine of repugnancy is used. But the doctrine of repugnancy will be using a high threshold. RERA was struck down because the threshold was very high. I mean, the threshold was very high in the sense that the RERA cannot, the law made by the West Bengal legislature cannot function, cannot be operationalized without in contravention to the union law. Both cannot function together because the provisions are in such highly conflictual.
Threshold high means that their conflicts are very less.
If you keep the threshold very high, then even, let's say, put this way. This is low threshold. This is high threshold. I'll give you an example. As a teacher, I asked you to come prepared for a particular chapter. But you did not. I asked you to stand outside the class. So I have a very low threshold for your disobedience or lack of fulfilling task. I asked you to study. Come back tomorrow. You did not. Not a problem. I kept on telling you for almost 1 week, but you did not fulfill that. So the 1 week is higher threshold for me. Threshold means the feeling of acceptance, tolerance. High tolerance, you can use this word, high tolerance, higher tolerance. So, in general, tolerance is high. Tolerance for what? Conflict. Getting what I am trying to say? But even if the high tolerance, there is a saying, when love and tolerance fail, force is justified. When love and tolerance fail, force is justified. So, the court will use love and tolerance, try to reconcile, harmonious. but not possible, strike down. Are you getting what I am trying to say? But essentially, if there is a conflict of repugnancy between the union law and state law in concurrent list, the court will try to make both these operationalized together. Ultimately, state is a representative of the people. They have the power to make law. In general, we cannot strike down those laws because ultimately they are the will of the people represented by the law. So in general, the idea has to be both should function together. Otherwise, what is the need for concurrent list? If every law made by the state for which there is a parliamentary law, then if it is struck down, then there is no point of having concurrent list. So ideally, both should function together. So ideally, whenever conflicts are there, like this RERA, union approached the Supreme Court and challenging the West Bengal government law, West Bengal law. So conflict is there. The Supreme Court will try to, or for the matter, High Court for that matter, will try to, or if it is an original jurisdiction, then Supreme Court, whatever that might be, higher judiciary will try to reconcile the difference. If it possible that both the two laws can be operationalized together simultaneously, this is the first step that they will use. They will try to harmoniously construct these two laws in such a manner that both can function together. Harmonious construction. Doctrine of harmonious construction. When there is a conflict or repugnancy between a union law and state law in concurrent list, the first doctrine used by the court is doctrine of harmonious construction. Harmonious. We will see, this to interpret in such a manner that both can function, both can be operationalized. Harmonious construction. If harmonious construction is not possible, then doctrine of repugnancy will be used. Having a higher threshold. Still cannot, after the doctrine of repugnancy, the court feels that the law cannot be operationalized. The state law will be struck down. When the state law is struck down, and then the union law will prevail. This is what is known as doctrine of federal supremacy. Doctrine of federal supremacy. Federal supremacy means what? Federal means what? Fender. Union law will prevail. First, they will try to harmoniously construe. Both can. Then they will apply doctrine of repugnancy, having a higher threshold. But after applying repugnancy, they feel that the threshold is the conflicts are very high, repugnancy very high. So there is no scope for construction. So they will struck down. Who? The state law. When state law is struck down, which law will prevail? Union law, which means federal law will prevail. So the prevailing of union law over state law is known as federal supremacy. So this approach is also known as doctrine of federal supremacy. First, harmonious construction, then doctrine of repugnancy, then federal supremacy. This is how it goes. Are you able to understand? What about farm laws? Farm laws, the central government, the parliament withdrew it. Don't worry about that. Parliament enacted farm laws, even though it was held that the farm laws were a colorable piece of legislation because agriculture is a state subject and the parliament did not have the power to make laws on agriculture. They used some other provisions in the concurrent list which essentially dealt with non-agriculture, foodstuff and others. So had that been challenged, I think it was challenged. The Supreme Court has stayed the implementation, but the Supreme Court did not get an opportunity to pronounce upon the validity or the constitutionality of the law because the government of India decided that we should withdraw this law. Why? Why do you think the government of India introduced a bill to withdraw this farm laws? Practice? Protest. That shows the responsiveness of the government. Responsiveness. The government is responsible to protest. Farmers are part of civil society. Farm, isn't it? See, the role of civil society shows the importance. Protest, right to protest, fundamental right. A lot of things are there. But I'll tell you why they withdrew after the class. Just kidding. No. It is necessary that the government should respond to the public voices and aspirations. Anyway, there are some other doctrines which we'll study later. So the time is enough. Isn't it? Tolerable legislation, within substance, harmonious construction, and this federal supremacy and others. There are multiple other things which we'll study later. The point that I am trying to make is this. Article 13 of the Constitution deals with law. The reason somebody is asking? No. Law has to be interpreted expansively so that the rights of people are safeguarded. The question is whether law in Article 13 involves constitutional right. Whether the word law in Article 13 includes constitutional amendments. That's the question I am asking. Law means constitutional amendment. In other words, can an amendment to the Constitution can be made which will take away or abridge your fundamental right? Because the constitutional amendment is not mentioned in Article 13. Laws are mentioned, ordinances are mentioned, bylaw, etc., but CA, amendment to the Constitution, constitutional amendment, no, very nice, it cannot be. Why is it so? To understand this, it is necessary to know some kind of judgment of the Supreme Court. First Amendment Act of the Parliament was challenged because violation of Part 3 of the Constitution. First Amendment Act. Why First Amendment was enacted? First Amendment was enacted because of the intervention of the judiciary in the programs, policies and laws which are essentially introduced by the Parliament and state government for agrarian reforms, land reforms, welfare, DPSPs like that. Reservation. First Amendment Act was challenged. The fundamental idea behind the challenge was the Amendment Act is a law as per Article 13. Shankari Prasad, 1951, First Amendment Act of the Constitution was challenged because according to the petitioner, amendment is also a law. Amendment is also a law and the amendment is taking away my rights because the First Amendment Act added something. The First Amendment Act added or amended Article 19. What it did? Article 19 Clause 2 amended. It added additional restrictions. Additional restrictions on right to freedom. Freedom of speech and expression. What it added? It added public order. It added friendly relation with nations. Friendly relation. It added another ground. Incitement to offense. Where it added? Article 19.2. Article 19.2 deals with what? Open constitution. Let's do this way. Article 19. Open. You have na? Mobile phone? No mobile phone. Share it. Article 19. Are you there? Article 19. Article 19 of the Constitution. Article 19 says what? Right to freedom. Article 19. Protection of certain rights regarding freedom of speech, etc. Article 19 provides you 6 freedom. What are they? Right to freedom of speech and expression. Right to assemble, association, then move freely, reside and settle, and profession, etc. But as we know that fundamental rights are not absolute, this can be restricted. Article 19 Clause 2 restricts your fundamental right under Article 19(1)(a). So your freedom of speech and expression are restricted by provisions under Article 19 Clause 2. Article 19 Clause 2 has a provision known as a term, reasonable restriction. So the restriction can be reasonable, should be reasonable. And what are the grounds under which your fundamental rights can be restricted? I am only dealing with this freedom of speech and expression. Article 19(1)(a). So your fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a) can be restricted reasonably by a law made by the eligible legislature on the grounds of security of the state, sovereignty and integrity of India, friendly relation with nations, defamation, morality, incitement to offence, contempt of court, and public order. So these are the grounds under which your freedom of speech and expression can be curtailed. So First Amendment Act added 3 more. Now we have, but these 3, public order, friendly relation and incitement to offence, was added or were added by First Amendment Act. And also First Amendment Act made restrictions reasonable. What is the meaning of reasonable restriction? RR. What RR? RRR. Reasonable restrictions, RR. The restriction should be reasonable, which means the law which restricts your fundamental rights should not be arbitrary. So the restriction should be reasonable in the sense fair, just, limited. The restriction should not be in such a way that you cannot exercise your fundamental right. Reasonable restriction. The term reasonable restriction in under Article 19 Clause 2 provides for doctrine of reasonable restrictions or doctrine of reasonableness. Whenever a law made by the Parliament or state legislature can be challenged, if it is challenged for violating a fundamental right under Article 19 for that matter, the court will see whether the restriction imposed by the law are reasonable or not. If these are unreasonable, then the law can be struck down. Not only that, the law provides some power to the administration, and the administration is using it. The court will also see if the powers are reasonable. The restriction will be reasonable, which means it cannot be such that the rights which are available to you will become what? A myth, a non-reality. Restriction should not lead to non-availability to your of your rights. You see, there is this. Section 144 you must have heard. Section 144 essentially prevents freedom of assembly. You have fundamental right to freedom of assembly. Isn't it? What is the duration of Section 144? Is it possible that Section 144 can be imposed without any time limit? I am the district collector. I have the power to impose Section 144. I issued an order saying that Section 144 will remain in this particular area for 1 year. Section 144 essentially prevents 4 or more people to gather together as assembly. 4 or 5? More than 4. 5 or more people. 5 or more people prevent. Now, can you tell me this order restricts your freedom of assembly? Isn't it? But is the restriction reasonable? Can the district collector, is the district collector a futuristic visionary that it is necessary to impose 144 for 1 year? If it is imposed for 1 year, then means that your fundamental right you cannot exercise it for 1 year. These are unreasonable restrictions. So the law can bring such provisions which are unreasonable. The administration can issue such orders which are unreasonable. Many times Section 144, I give you an example here. Section 144 in West Bengal recently, Sandesh Khali, the High Court of Calcutta, struck down Section 144 in that area. Why? Unreasonable. Section 144 not only affects your freedom of, it affects everything. You want to go there, you want to see, you want to speak to people. Freedom of speech and expression, violated. Assembly, violated. Association, you want to move as a group, violated. Free movement, violated. So the restriction will be reasonable, cannot be unreasonable. If they are unreasonable, then it can be struck down. Doctrine of reasonableness will be used by the court. But doctrine of reasonableness is not enough. In order to find out whether a restriction is reasonable or not, another doctrine is used. That is Doctrine of proportionality. To find out the reasonableness of a law or an administrative action, the doctrine of proportionality is used. Doctrine of proportionality doctrine of proportionality has four principles or four pillars. Number one, principle of legitimacy. Number two, principle of suitability. Number three, principle of necessity. Legitimacy, suitability, necessity, and balance. Balance, principle of legitimacy, number one, principle of suitability, number two, principle of necessity, number three, principle of balance, number four. A law or an administrative decision or action should satisfy all these four principles so that it can be termed as reasonable, even if there is violation. How many of you know this judgment of Supreme Court, this right to privacy, or this editorial bond? No, not editorial bond, this electoral bond. Go home and read about that. You will find out proportionality. Principle of legitimacy, which means there should be a law, and the law should have constitutionality. Suitability, whether the law or action is suitable to achieve an objective. Section 144 is issued to maintain law and order, to prevent untoward incident. So, imposing section 144 is suitable. True, fine. Necessity. Can there be any other measure which will ensure law and order rather than section 144? Copying in examination hall. Generally, internet is shut down. Section 140, internet is shut down when there is examination. You must have read about in Rajasthan and others, Haryana and others, internet shut down. Internet shutdown has a law. There is a law which provides for internet shutdown. Right? So, principle of legitimacy, legality is satisfied. Suitability. Whether shutting down internet will lead to no copy in the examination, cannot guarantee, but there is a possibility, high possibility. Because generally this information is passed through mobiles and others. Not only that, the paper is leaked through mobiles and others, so internet shutdown can. Necessity. Can there be any other less restrictive measure which can be used to prevent copying in the examination? In other words, is shutting down internet is the only way to prevent copying in the examination? No. Third prong, principle not satisfied. Number four, balance. Balance means cost-benefit analysis. What is the impact of shutting down internet on the people there? Their livelihood, their education, their movement, khana pina, that Swiggy and Zomato all impacted. Lot of things. So the disproportionate cost and benefit is very less. Not satisfied. So, two prongs can be satisfied, two did not. Struck down. Proportionality. Are you understanding what I am trying to say? Doctrine of proportionality. Article 19, as well as this doctrine is also used in Article 21. Because procedure established by law.
One question. So we can say that this proportionality came after due process of law?
Yes. Because this doctrine of proportionality is a new invention, or let's say a new judicial doctrine. New. Because ultimately, the rights of people should be safeguarded. Constitution purpose is to provide right to people. Hence, a constitution chief purpose limit the power of government. But the government always try to aggrandize the power. So the doctrines are evoked, involved, or utilized in order to what? In order to protect the rights of people, in order to scrutinize the actions of the legislature and the administration. It's a new one. Modern Dental College, this has been used in Modern Dental College, 2006 to 16. The most famous case is right to privacy judgment, Supreme Court, Puttaswamy. And after that, this has been used multiple times. And the latest is the electoral bond. Right? Proportionality. Proportionality is used not only in your, what we say, Article 19, but also in 21. Right to life and liberty. Shutting down internet violates your right to life or not? Right to life means a dignified life. Right to livelihood. Your right to life is intimately linked with your vocation, livelihood. You should work, then only you can live. Shutting down the internet violates that. Proportionality. Multiple. Hijab case, hijab. The ability, the purpose or the right to wear a dress is a person's choice. It is also a choice, it is also a freedom of expression. You are expressing yourself by wearing a dress. So, the ban on hijab in Karnataka violated, what we say, the proportionality, it cannot satisfy proportionality doctrine. Although you know that what happened in Karnataka and what happened in, let's say, this Supreme Court. Whatever that might be. When proportionality doctrine is used, then the rights of citizens and others, they can have more rights. Proportionality doctrine reduces the arbitrary power of the state. Are you able to understand? So we can see this way. Procedure established by law, first due process, then proportionality. Progressive movement towards rights for people. Progressive jurisprudence. Expansion of rights for people. Another thing that in Article 19, who can make law? A law is required to restrict your fundamental right under Article 19. Who can make law? The Parliament can make law, or state can make law, or both can make law. Who can make law? Only the Parliament can make, or the state can make, or both can make? Both can make. Both can make on same subject. There are, let's take the example of Article 19, clause 2. Sovereignty of India, sovereignty and integrity of India, security of state, public order, contempt of court. Whether the Parliament and the state together can make laws on all these grounds? Yes or no? No. The lawmaking power, don't worry, you can commit mistakes, not a problem. I know that. It's difficult, this way, lot of things you will learn. I think you are learning, which generally you don't learn. But these are important. The power to make law, to impose reasonable restriction under Article 19 depends upon the respective legislative competence. Give an example, public order, which list? In general, public order. If you see preliminary detention, we are not dealing with that, public order. Public order is state list. So, public order can be, who can make law? State legislature. Friendly relation with nations, who can make law? Sender. Security of state, who can make law? Security of state. What? Leave it. It might be complicated. Leave it. Let me take another one. What is else? Contempt of court, who can make law? Contempt of court, who can make law? Huh? How? Contempt of court, the Parliament can make law, state can make law. The power to make law as far as contempt of court is concerned with respect to state flows from concurrent list. Contempt of court, the entry contempt of court you will find in union list as well as concurrent list. The power to make law against contempt of Supreme Court in union list. It is in union list. Contempt of court against Supreme Court, union list. Who can make law? The Parliament. But contempt of court can be against High Court also. Who can make law? State and Parliament both, because it is in concurrent list. If you see concurrent list, entry 60 I think, you will find that contempt of court except Supreme Court. Schedule 7. Entry 14, sorry. Entry 14, Schedule 7, concurrent list. Contempt of court, but not including contempt of the Supreme Court. Remember? Remember this. No, it does not come under admission. No. Contempt of court is a different entry. The point I am trying to make is this. The reasonable restriction should be by a law. And the law making power depends upon the respective competency of the legislature. Are you able to understand or not? Article 14 of the Constitution. Article 14 deals with what? Read Article 14 for me properly. You can read. Read faster. Don't have time. You can read Article 14 for me. Sorry? Equality before law and equal protection of law. Article 14. Equality before law, yesterday we studied. Isn't it? Now, whether that Article 14, right to equality in Article 14 is available only to citizens or foreigners, corporations, company, what is the word used in Article 14? State shall not deny means negative right. Further.
Shall not deny to any person.
Person is the word. Person can be who? Citizen. A person can be human being or a juridical person or a legal person. Legal person means a company, corporation like that. A person can be non-citizen also.
Any person. Equality before the law or the equal protection of the laws within the territory of India.
Okay. There are 5 rights which are available exclusively to citizen. 15, 16, 19, 21, 29 and 30. Those rights which are available exclusively to citizen are 15, 16, 19, 29 and 30. Other rights are available to citizens and foreigners, but it does not apply to enemy aliens. Now what is this alien? In law, the human beings can be divided into 2, citizens and aliens. Citizen is a citizen, the non-citizens are alien. Alien or aliens. Aliens can be enemy or friendly. Friendly alien, F, or enemy. You must have seen Hollywood movies. Some aliens are friendly, some are enemies. Similarly, humans can also be friendly and enemy. Enemy alien mean those countries with which we are in war. Enemy. Rights apart from this are available to both citizen as well as friendly aliens. Clear? Now, Article 14 deals with equality before law for persons. Person is important word. Person. Wherever there is person, it means it is available to non-citizens also. Legal persons also. Equality before law and equal protection of law. Equality before law we discussed yesterday. Isn't it? I am going to discuss equal protection of law. What is the meaning of this word equal protection of law? State shall not deny to any. Yeah, very good. What is equal protection of law? EPL. English Premier League.
Having different capacities, if they have committed the same crime, then they will be treated alike.
Okay. Equality before law. Like will be treated like or alike. Unequals will be treated unequally. Equals will be treated equally. Like will be treated alike, unequals will be treated unequally, equals will be treated equally. Preferential treatment can be given. Discrimination can be practiced. Discrimination can be practiced. Those should be positive discrimination or affirmative discrimination. Positive or affirmative. Distinction. another word for discrimination, can be made among classes. Provide for reasonable classification. Reasonable classification. Equal protection of law is an exception to equality before law. Equality before law generally says what? No privilege. All should be treated equally. There cannot be two sets of law. Whether you are a senior citizen or a young person, there will be no reservation of seats in metro. There cannot be any separate wagon or a coach for women in metro. There cannot be disabled friendly, specially abled seats in, let's say, in transport. There cannot be free travel to women in Delhi. There cannot be free power to particular people who are having this income. Everybody should pay tax. There cannot be different tax slabs. There cannot be reservation based on caste, religion, or economic consideration. Perfect equality should be there. That is equality before law. But the word equality, as we understand, will lose its meaning if this traditional meaning of equality is understood, taken. Because inequality is the order of the nature. Everywhere we find inequality. And if we need to take steps to address, remove this inequality. If perfect equality is used, or if the perfect equality governs the policies and programs of the state, then only those people having the privileged position in the society will remain privileged. Others cannot move up the ladder. There cannot be any social mobility. Why do you think reservation is given to some section of people? Because one idea is that they are socially educationally backward, some are economic backward, they have suffered historical injustice. Without providing this benefits to them, they cannot compete on equal terms. They cannot become equal to others, at least. Inequality will widen. Senior citizen, because of their age, they require some special treatment, privileged treatment. So reservation is given to them in train and others, although the concession might have been withdrawn. But there are in metro seats available. So we will find unequal treatment. We will find unequal treatment between some groups of people. Whether the group can be based on caste, maybe on religion, maybe on economic consideration, maybe on age, maybe on gender, maybe on state, language, multiple. Are these appropriate? Do they do this separate treatment, discriminatory treatment, privileged treatment to a group of people, violate equality? The constitutional expression of equality is not violated by this. Equal protection of law, that is providing reservation, affirmative action, support, treating people differently, do not violate equality, provided it does not violate Article 14. Reservation, affirmative action, preferential treatment, discrimination do not violate Article 14, that is equality in Article 14 or in the Constitution, provided this treatment is what? Reasonable. Can you differentiate persons above 60 years from, let's say, the youth of this country? Is it possible to differentiate? Is it possible to recognize those individuals who are above 60 years of age in India? And is it then we can provide some benefits to them, like let's say reserving seats in the metro? Is it possible to do that? It is possible to do. But the people who are below 60 years, they are not able to get the reserved seats. Will those people below 60 years claim that we are being discriminated against. You are giving privileges to them. Why do you think they, even if they claim so, their claim cannot be accepted as valid? Why? Why do you think so? Mismatch in potential. So?
To balance it, there is reservation
For what? I mean, fine, but still not proper. Why do you think the reservation is given in the context of, let's say, the senior citizen in the metro? For what purpose? Convenience. Let me ask you one thing. You have right to fundamental freedom in Article 19. Move freely. Citizens want to move, senior citizens want to move. But because of the rush and others, let's say a person is very economically backward, wants to move, reside and settle and work. But because of the lack of availability of proper transportation, the person is not able to do it. So because of preferential treatment being given to the individuals below above 60 years, they are able to use their fundamental right. Not only that, if you see DPSP, between welfare is an obligation of the state. Education, health, work, etc., multiple things are there. So by providing benefits, privilege to a section of people, you are actually trying to achieve the objectives of the Constitution. So treating senior citizen and non-senior citizen does not violate Article 14 of the Constitution, does not violate equality. Senior citizens are a class of people, a group of people who can be identified on a homogeneous criteria apart from others. 60 years. Age is the criteria on which you classify. Group, senior citizen. Caste is the criteria on which you class, group, the scheduled caste. Tribe is the scheduled tribe. Other backward classes, socially and educational backwardness, OBC. Economically weaker section, economic criteria, grouping. Women, men, gender, children and adults, age, language. The equality in Indian Constitution provides for classification of people based on some sound criteria. The criteria should be reasonable. In other words, Article 14 provides for reasonable classification. Article 14 provides for reasonable classification. People can be classified on the basis of reasonable criteria like age, language, etc. And we can provide them benefit to them which are not available to others. This does not violate equality. Are you able to understand or not? Doctrine of reasonable classification is used to find out whether a distinction, the privilege, discrimination is reasonable or not. Doctrine of reasonable classification has two principles. Do you have the capacity to learn? Otherwise I will tell you tomorrow. Class is not over, don't worry. Reasonable classification I will tell you tomorrow. Because it will be difficult for you to learn a lot of things on a stretch. But remember this, Article 14. Also remember, if you see equality before law, we have discussed something like absence of arbitrary power. Let me ask you one question. If discretion is given to the administration, can there be a scope for arbitrary action? What is the meaning of discretion? The capacity or the power to act independently. There is no law, no guidance are there, but I am a person, I have to take a decision, discretion. So whenever there is an option to apply your discretion, there is a chance that you may use it not wisely. You may misuse your discretion, you may abuse your discretion. When you abuse your discretion, then there is arbitrariness. The order to fire upon people should be given by the concerned magistrate. If there are adequate reasons for him or her to order, then. But if the situation is like that, situation is evolving, dynamic, there cannot be any special guidelines, specific guidelines for every situation. So the person is on the ground. He has to apply his mind and use his discretion or her discretion for that matter, whether to order firing or whatever that might be. So discretion can be used to address a situation. But the problem is that the discretion is used to what? To inflict large suffering on people. Let's say a normal lathi charge would have addressed the problem, but the district magistrate ordered firing. So he would say, I had the discretion because there was nobody. I was the one supposed to take a decision. I took my this decision. But the discretion is arbitrary. You should have not used this much of force. You used disproportionate force. The fundamental idea I am trying to make is this. Wherever there is discretion, there is chance for arbitrariness. Article 14 of the Constitution, especially equality before law. We have studied equality before law, no arbitrary power. It essentially means no discretion. But is it possible for the administration to work without discretion? Is it possible to have a laid down law, regulation, guidance, code of conduct for every aspect of human life? No. Public servants are in the middle of public, which means an evolving situation, dynamic situation. Lot of events happen, lot of developments happen, which require the public servant to take on the spot decisions, for which no guidance might not be there. No guidance might be there. So discretion is required. Article 14 provides for discretion. But the discretion cannot be uncontrolled. Regulated discretion. In other words, canalized discretion. In other words, Article 14 does not provide for uncanalized, uncontrolled, unregulated discretion. But it provides discretion. Are you able to understand or not? Article 15 of the Constitution deals with what? It deals with? Very easy. No discrimination based on RRCSP. Race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth. Now, let me ask you one thing. Reservation on the basis of caste. Does it violate Article 15? Why? Tell me the constitutional basis. 15 clause 1 says, open 51. 15 clause 1 says what? Says, the state shall not discriminate, negative right, against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Important word is only one. Which means state can discriminate on other parameters. So caste should not be the basis, only the basis. Race cannot be the basis, but if you couple caste with others, then you can provide. But the point I am trying to make is this. The government of India, when after the commencement of the Constitution, tried to bring a lot of legislations for the benefits of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other vulnerable sections of people. The Madras government introduced reservation policy for scheduled caste in medical and engineering colleges in Madras and in 50. This was challenged by Chambagam Dorairajan. So Chambagam Dorairajan case, the Supreme Court struck down the reservation given to scheduled caste. Why the Supreme Court said 15 clause 1 clearly says cannot be based on caste. So you are providing reservation on caste. Similarly, there are other cases also in let's say Punjab and others. Similar, but the fundamental point is that whenever the state governments try to provide reservation or some affirmative policies or legislative enactment for the benefit of the marginal section, the court struck down. So Chambagam Dorairajan, 1951, struck down what? The reservation provided to scheduled caste. Why? Because it was based on caste. Come to Article 15 clause 4. Read 15 clause 4. 15 clause 4, read fast. '15 clause 4 enacted by or added by the Parliament through First Amendment Act. After Chambagam Dorayarajan. Through First Amendment Act, 15 clause 4 was incorporated in the 15.4. What does it say? Nothing in 15 clause 1 shall prevent the state from making special provision for this scheduled caste and others. So whatever is given in 15.1 does not bind. Whenever the word is used, nothing, which means this clause, this nothing, the clause which starts with nothing will override the other. This is an overriding clause. So 15 clause 4 will override 15 clause 1. Are you able to understand what I am trying to say? So 15 clause 4 was added, providing for special provisions. What is 15 clause 3? 15 clause 3 provides for special provision for women and children. What is 15 clause 2? 15 clause 2 is a horizontal right also, because it prevents discrimination by private sector, private individuals. There are multiple wells, the shops, let's say the amenities for public use, etc., which are generally used by public. So based on your race, religion, caste, etc., cannot be discriminated. 15 clause, Article 15, available to both citizens as well as foreigners. No, only citizens. The state shall not discriminate. What is the word here? Read it. Any citizen. That is the word. Discrimination can be based on other. Cannot provide on caste, etc. Only on that. But if you can satisfy that, we are providing friend to this caste because they are economically backward or they have some other problem, then it can be justified. Reasonable classification is applied here also. Article 15 was amended recently. You must be knowing about economic weaker section, EWS category. 103rd Amendment. 103rd Amendment was introduced to provide reservation up to 10%. To whom? Economically weaker sections. Both in educational aspect, especially the Article 15 deals with education. Educational reservation. Article 16 deals with employment, public employment. So, educational opportunities are available to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC and your EWS, economically weaker section. 103rd Amendment. Article 16. This is very important. Article 16 deals with what? Public employment. State shall not discriminate against any citizen on the basis of RR, CSP, DR, descent and residence. Article 16 deals with RR, CSP, DR. DR means what? D means descent. R means resident. So public employment is open to all. You cannot be discriminated on the basis of, only on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth and descent. This means family origin, residence. But if you see Article 16 clause 2, what does it say? Clause 2 or clause 3? Clause 3. 16 clause 3 provides for what? No need to remember clauses, but simply understand Article 16. Article 16 says what? 15 also say Parliament can, through a law, make residence in a particular state or union territory or local area is mandatory. Which means Parliament brought a law in 1957. Public Employment as to Residence Act, which essentially means those individuals who are living in those designated states like Andhra Pradesh, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh, etc. Only those people can apply for jobs in those states. You have Public Service Commission. MP wala goes to Uttar Pradesh to write, Uttar Pradesh go to Bihar. You can go this way. But what if Maharashtra? What if residence is made mandatory? Which means if you are resident of Maharashtra, then only you can write in Maharashtra. Otherwise, you cannot. If you are resident only in Madhya Pradesh, then only you can attend PCS. Bihar residents, Uttar Pradesh residents cannot attempt in Madhya Pradesh. Just asking. It is possible to do that. Who has the power to make law? Who has the power to make residence in a state or a UT as a mandatory criteria for availing public employment? The Parliament by law. Parliament made a law in 1950s. The law has been, the validity of the law has been expired in late 1970s. As of now, there is no parliamentary law. There is no parliamentary law which makes residence mandatory, but there are provisions in the constitution. अरे लिख लो भाई, नहीं लिखना है, ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं. Article 371. Article 371D. Article 371D deals with special provisions with respect to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. It says, President by order can make residence in a local area mandatory for education and employment. Residence in a local area can be made mandatory, President by order, for education and employment. Article 371J. President by order with respect to Karnataka Hyderabad region can provide that birth or domicile in birth or domicile in Karnataka Hyderabad region may be mandatory for education and employment. Similar provisions also exist in Schedule 6 areas. Don't worry about that. There are Schedule 6 areas we'll study later. Such provisions, requirement of residence and others, also applicable, available in Schedule 6 area. But recently you must have read about Haryana, Punjab and Haryana High Court struck down a law made by the Haryana legislature. What was the law? Reservation in private employment. Reservation in private employment, Haryana made it mandatory that 75% of jobs in private sector, eligible private sector, should be reserved for people who are domiciled in Haryana. What is the meaning of the word domicile? Coming from other places. If the word domicile is mentioned in Article 15, where domicile is mentioned in Article 16, is it mentioned in 15? No. So if it's proper that a state government or for that matter the union can make domicile mandatory for education and employment, is it possible? Huh? Absolutely. There are many state governments who have made this domicile mandatory for education, especially in the context of education, the colleges and others. Domicile means a certificate of residence. You can have, let's say, okay, this way. Place of birth, you must understand. Place of birth means what? Where you are? You will have only one place of birth. You can have multiple residences, but you will have only one domicile. Domicile is the document issued by the concerned state government, which is a proof of your residence, original residence, permanent residence, you can say. So many states have different criteria. As you said, some states have 10 years, some have 15 years, some have 5 years, something like that. So if you are resident in that particular state for the required period, then you will get the domicile certificate. If domicile certificate is important for multiple benefits, like ration cards and others, etc., multiple benefits and certificates, services given by the state government. My point is that domicile is not mentioned in the 15 and 16. So domicile can be a criteria to discriminate, number one. So Haryana private sector used domicile. But still the High Court struck down that law. Because they were trying to reserve jobs in private sector. Article 16 deals with public employment. Although they are using domicile as a criteria, is essentially residence. Although the word domicile is used, but essentially it is residence, which means essentially the Haryana people can only apply. On the one hand, you are discriminating other people to be a part of private sector in Haryana. So you are violating the Article 15. Because Article 15 provides public employment, not private sector employment. Remember this. And residence power lawmaking is only with the who? Parliament, not state legislature. Not only that, you are putting 75%. It is unreasonable. You have fundamental right under Article 19(1)(g). Who? Vocation, occupation, profession. So the right of the fundamental rights of the private sector in Haryana to conduct their business, enterprise, economic activity is violated. 14 violated. Unreasonable classification based on domicile. The point I am trying to make is this. Remember this, residence. State cannot make, only Parliament can make. Similarly, 103rd Amendment Act also added EWS, 10% in Article 16 also.
In case of State Public Service Commission, can state government have the quota system that these residents can only fill that only those seats and the rest will be open to all?
State government cannot make residence mandatory. Only Parliament by law can make it. Na? How can state will do? State can use domicile. But domicile is essentially residence. So instead of not making domicile as a criteria, they will say it is mandatory to clear this local language. The language is not here. If let's say Telugu in Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, or this Bhojpuri does not have a script for that matter, Marathi is mandatory in Maharashtra. If Marathi is not mandatory in Maharashtra, then other North Indian guys can come and write. So in order to appear for the examination, you can appear. But if you don't qualify the examination, Marathi paper, then cannot, you will not be selected. So in a way, the Marathi paper is an indirect discrimination. Their aim is that. You have the option to choose. You have the option to choose the language paper, na? Here in PSC, you don't have the option. You have to. Kerala, Malayalam has to be this. Kannada. So this is a way of keeping away people.
So, but in our states, Bengali has been, what you can say, made mandatory, but it has been changed in the High Court.
Let the High Court discuss or let's say think over it. High Court does not have time because it has to deal with, the High Court of Calcutta is acting as the opposition political party. Yes, isn't it? They don't have the time to deal with all these things. Sorry for saying, no contempt of court against me.
Questions are in Hindi language also in UPSC.
You must be grateful that they still have English version. I am saying you should be grateful that they still have English version. Hindi is a very beautiful language. I am from Kerala. I know Hindi. I love Hindi. So what? Learn the Hindi. What's the problem? Whatever language you can learn, you're from whichever place you are from, South India. You know one language. You know English. It's better to learn one more language, isn't it? Hindi will help you to manage your life in Northern India. And let's say, what if? Anyway, if you get selected, then you have to learn the local language, isn't it? So don't think that way. And it is not practical to print the paper in, let's say, the 22 languages are recognized by the Constitution. Is it possible? No. If you say I want in Telugu, Kannada or Malayalam, they will say Marathi is required. And they will say Bengali is required, like that. Is it possible? No. Hindi and English are official languages. Isn't it? So official. Only two official languages. So we should respect the official language. Isn't it? Anyway, 16, 17. Article 17 deals with what? Very easy. Let's rush. We have some important things I'll explain. Article 17 deals with untouchability. Untouchability. Untouchability is an offense. Untouchability is not defined. You see, my fundamental rights are violated by this telemarketing calls. I should file a writ petition against them. These insurance companies and others they keep calling. Anyway, Article 17, untouchability, not defined. Neither defined in the Article 17, nor defined in Protection of Civil Rights Act. No statutory definition, no constitutional definition of untouchability. Untouchability is not defined. Untouchability is not only physical untouchability. There are multiple manifestations of it. Read Lakshmikant for that, or you understand what is untouchability. Right. Second is that one thing is important. If you are convicted for practicing untouchability or under the PCR, Protection of Civil Rights Act, then you cannot. You are disqualified from contesting election, as well as you will be disqualified as a legislator. There are multiple grounds of a disqualification of a legislator. If you are convicted under Protection of Civil Rights Act, Protection of Civil Rights Act means what? Protection of civil rights mean civil rights of the scheduled caste. Civil rights mean what? Movement, speak, what, all those things. So if they are violated by some individuals and they are convicted, then they are disqualified. Quantum of punishment does not matter. 2 years, 1 year, fine does not matter. Conviction is only required. Remember this. Article 17. Also remember, Article 17 is punishment to untouchability. It is not self-executory. It requires fraud, spam. This true caller is helping. Article 17 is not self-executory. You know what is? In order to punish for untouchability, Parliament has to make a law. That is, a Parliament made a law relative of Untouchability Offences Act, later rechristened, renamed into Protection of Civil Rights Act. There are some provisions in the Constitution, Part 3 of the Constitution, for which to implement them, only Parliament can make law. State cannot make law, even if those entries are falling in state list. Remember, Article 17. Come to Article 35 of the Constitution. 35, open 35, fast. Article 35. Read. What does it mean? Parliament will make law, state cannot make law. Next. Don't worry, do one thing. In Article 35, write. Article 35, write. Article 35, that is why I told you should have this Constitution. It will help. Article 35. Write down. Article 17. In Article 35, just write Article 17, Article 23, Article 33, 16 clause 3, clause 3, Article 33, Article 34, Article 17, wrote, Article 23, Article 32, clause 3, if I am not wrong, let me see, Article 32. Yes, Article 32, clause 3. 32, clause 3. All those provisions dealing with these articles, only the Parliament can make law. Article 70 deal with untouchability. So only Parliament has the power to make law. For what? To make untouchability as an offence. That is PCR, Protection of Civil Rights Act. 23 dealing with right against exploitation, forced labour, beggar, etc. Article 23. There are two articles, 23 and 24, dealing with right against exploitation. Article 23 deals with forced labour is prohibited. Forced labour can be multiple form of forced labour. Forced labour need not be physical force. It can be multiple. Economic necessity, social force, whatever that might be, multiple. Lack of not paying minimum wages is also a form of forced labour. So, to punish this forced labour also include bonded labour. So, to punish these aspects, to deal with these aspects, Who can make law? Only the Parliament. Only Parliament, like let's say Minimum Wages Act, Parliament meet. Bonded Labour Abolition Act, Parliament meet. Contract Labour Abolition Regulation, Parliament meet. Who can make law? 23, Parliament. Next is 33. Open Article 33. What does it say? 33 says those individuals who are working in intelligence agency, army, police, etc., who can make law? Because their fundamental rights are restricted. So Parliament by law can restrict the fundamental rights which are available to security forces, armed forces, police, intelligence, and those civilians who are working under this organization. Who can make law? Parliament can make law. State police, who can make law with respect to their fundamental right? Parliament. No, even if they are working under state, Parliament will make law. Article 33 says, even if you are working on state level, UT level, union level, your fundamental rights will be restricted, can be restricted through appropriate law made by the Parliament. Even if they are working at the state level, state police, state intelligence and others, who will make law? Parliament will make law. For what? Curtailment of your fundamental rights. What is Article 34? 34 deals with indemnity for indemnity when martial law is in force. The term martial law is not defined in the Constitution. There is no provision for martial law in the Constitution. Article 34 only provides for indemnity in the event of martial law. Martial law means military law, military rule, we can say. In the sense that if the civil authority, the police and others, if they are not able to control, then the armed forces can be called. Armed Forces Special Power Act, not martial law. AFPA, not martial law. Martial law has never been implemented in India, independent India. Martial law concept comes from English common law, English. Independent India, no martial law. Article 34 does not provide for martial law. Article 34, martial law is implicit in Article 34, incorrect. Lakshmikant says no, not implicit. It simply says whenever there is martial law, whatever action taken by the concerned authorities, they can be indemnified. Indemnity means immunity can be given by parliament law. Are you able to understand or not?
So this particular martial word is mentioned, martial law word is in Constitution.
Indemnity in martial law is mentioned. Indemnity in martial law is mentioned. That is what is mentioned, na? It does not provide for martial law. Martial law is not implicit. It is implicit that there can be martial law. By using Article 34, we cannot say that there is a power to let's impose martial law. Sovereignty and integrity of the country is a union responsibility. So, by using the power in that, then they can impose martial law. What I am trying to say that 34 does not provide for martial law, neither explicit nor implicit. It simply says whenever there is martial law imposed, there is indemnity Parliament will make, Parliament by law, that's it. If it provides for martial law, then there will be no democracy in India. We would have become this Pakistan.
सर मार्शल लॉ में पार्लियामेंट एग्जिस्ट करती है
करती है क्यों नहीं करती है? See, we had no experience with the martial law. Martial law does not mean what martial law is a local application of the military rule. Whenever there is a huge law and order problem, let's say terrorist activity, something like that, the existence of that area, I mean the control of the state is gone from that area, then the military can be called in. But and the military requires some special provisions. The ordinary law system will not function. Ordinary court will not function. The administration will not function properly, in the sense that the military authorities will have complete power. So they will try to use force to ensure, maintain law and order. Parliament can exist, Supreme Court exist, does not matter. Martial law does not per se exclude writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Whenever there is martial law, there can be writ. Just because martial law is imposed does not mean there is no writ available. Writ petition means what? Article 32. In order to enforce your fundamental right, you can go to court. Because rights without enforcement mechanism is of no value. You remember what Hobbes have said. State of nature. People had some rights, whatever rights they have, but there were no state, no enforcing mechanism. If my rights are violated, there is nobody to enforce. Now my fundamental rights are violated. There is judicial review. I can go to court. Isn't it? Supreme Court or High Court. So Article 32 provides a mechanism to enforce your fundamental rights. Article 32 makes your fundamental rights real. Because rights without a remedy is a farce or a myth. Remedy means what? When the rights are violated, the remedy is required. Who is providing the remedy? The High Court or the Supreme Court. So Article 32 provides writ. We will study Article 32 tomorrow. Let's understand. You can approach directly the Supreme Court under Article 32 if your fundamental rights are violated. So if martial law, fundamental rights are violated, if there is no writ, then you cannot go to Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court has observed in some cases that imposition of martial law ipso facto does not preclude or exclude writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Why am I telling you this? This you will not find. Statement can be given. Imposition of martial law will lead to what? Exclusion of writ jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Incorrect. Not necessary. Are you getting what I am trying to say? Yes or no? Writ, which means fundamental rights will also survive. You can go. What is the time? 7:30. Article 18, very important. Because this is the season of Bharat Ratna. Isn't it? The last Bharat Ratna was in 2019, I think, Pranab Mukherjee, right? 19, maybe, yes, this Pranab Mukherjee, last. But this is the season of Bharat Ratna. Every week it is said that we are having a Bharat Ratna. Right, so it is necessary that we should study about these things. Article 18 provides what? Abolition of hereditary titles, not all titles. Titles are something which you use as a prefix or a suffix. Academic titles, military titles, and let's say this, these awards are not titles, remember. Awards, Padma Awards and Bharat Ratna Awards are not title as per Article 18 of the Constitution. So provision of Bharat Ratna and Padma Awards do not violate Article 18. Article 18 does not say merit should not be recognized. By providing these Bharat Ratna and Padma Awards, we are recognizing merits, distinguished service, etc. Right? So Article 18 is no, these awards are not in violation of Article 18 of the Constitution. Balaji Raghavan, Supreme Court, 1963 or 4. We leave it. Supreme Court said that. Now the question is, how many Bharat Ratna, or let's say the evolution of Bharat Ratna. In 1954, the government of India introduced Bharat Ratna and Padma Vibhushan, only two. But the government felt that, you see, my friends, relatives and other individuals are not unable to get. Because only one is there, Padma Vibhushan, isn't it? So let us increase the scope of Padma. So they changed in 1955. They added Padma Vibhushan is there, Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri, two more. So this is how it is going. 3 Padma, Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri. It's not necessary for you to remember who has Padma Bhushan, Padma Shri, no. But remember who has got this Bharat Ratna. Karpuri Thakur, Log Nayak Karpuri Thakur. Then Charan Singh, L.K. Advani, M.S. Swaminathan, P.V. Narasimha Rao, 5. Right, so total number of Bharat Ratna so far, find out total number. Remember, posthumous Bharat Ratna is also given, posthumous. It was not earlier, it was only in 1960s. Lal Bahadur Shastri was the first one who got the posthumous, means after death. This is right. And Padma Awards can also be awarded posthumously. So the statement is like this. While Bharat Ratna can be awarded posthumously, Padma Vibhushan cannot be awarded posthumously. Incorrect. Getting what I'm trying to say? Whatever that might, Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, Minister of Home Affairs is the one who's dealing with the ministry responsible for it. Bharat Ratna, the Prime Minister recommends or advises the President. Na aage no koi piche. Right? Prime Minister. But as far as Padma awards are concerned, a cabinet Prime Minister constitutes a committee headed by Cabinet Secretary. Arey, likh lo bhai, why are you not writing all these things? Where you will find? Are you hearing stories? You should write. I am trying to give you everything in one place. Anyway, this class is also live. And as you are part of this class, you can have access to this online later also. But this is free for all, this one. If you have some doubts, etc., as far as these notes are concerned, then you can refer to the online videos and find out. And whatever after that, some doubts you have, you can ask me. But anyway, the better thing is to utilize this time. Write down everything. In the sense that all those are important, required. Minister of Home Affairs, PM, President, Prime Minister sets up a committee headed by Cabinet Secretary. Cabinet Secretary advises the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister comments to the President. These awards are announced on the occasion of Republic Day. And these awards are actually given, presented in month of February or March or April by the President. Right? Maximum number of Bharat Ratna, 3 as of now, in a year. No, that has been changed if I remember. It was 3. Now, 5. This year 5. So that norm has also been changed. Right. So I'll see whether they have, this norm or this rule has been changed. As far as Padma is concerned, it's around 120, something like that. Don't worry about that. But one important thing is that you cannot use these titles as suffix or prefix. Like in your home, let's outside, you cannot in the nameplate you cannot write Bharat Ratna or Padma Shri. That cannot be done. But in your visiting card, if you are a Bharat Ratna, then you can mention awarded Bharat Ratna or received Bharat Ratna, something like that. In your visiting card, something like that. Bharat Ratna, no Padma. Padma cannot be written like that. Bharat Ratna can be written, visiting card, and there is one more document in which you can do. But you cannot use it as a title per se. But remember, Bharat Ratna has 7th position in table of precedence. You know, 7th. Let me put it 7 or 7A. 7th, na? 7th or 7A. I'll see that later. Table of precedence. What is table of precedence? Whenever there is an official function, who will sit at the center? Who will come last? Who will have the biggest share? All these things. Table of precedence. Seniority wise in government. President highest, then vice president, then prime minister, like that, etc., etc. So, in 1978 and 1979, Bharat Ratna and Padma awards were abolished for 2 years, Janata Party. In 1993 to 1997, these awards were suspended. 78, 79, abolished, because Janata Party was equality before law. You are violating equality, isn't it? By providing these awards. So they abolished. But when Indira Gandhi came, restored the awards. Because she was a recipient of this Bharat Ratna in 1971. What that might be? In 1993 to 1997, awards were suspended. Right? The administrative ministry is MHA. No cash award is given in this. No paisa. Paisa nahi milega. But you will get a certificate and some other, this memento, etc., etc. Right? Online people are writing, sir. Very good. Seven? 7A. Yes, 7A. It's a different issue this Bharat Ratna and awards. Different issue when we discuss mains aspect. But as far as PT is concerned, these primary facts are important, necessary. Article 19 we discussed. Article 19, there are some, if we go through that, not only freedom of speech and expression, you have assembly, association, cooperative society important, Article 19(1)(c). Right, cooperative society is a fundamental right, 19(1)(c), this 97th Amendment Act. Although doctrine of severability, don't go, class is not over. Although severability was applied, but it did not do anything with respect to 19(1)(c), fundamental right. 43B will defeat tomorrow. But only it did was severing the state-related aspects in cooperative article in Part 9B of the Constitution. But anyway, Article 19, anything else? The restriction, reasonable restriction, which are applicable to freedom of speech and expression are the highest. The reasonable restriction which are applicable to assembly is sovereignty and integrity of India, public order and morality. No, don't worry. But remember these things, I mean, in a holistic manner. But if it is freedom of association, then it is sovereignty, integrity and public order. No morality is there. Then D and D, that is to move freely and reside and settle. It is general public interest, GPI, general public interest and interest of scheduled tribe. These two grounds on which it can be restricted. Article 19, clause F was right to property. Right to property was a fundamental right earlier, which was repealed as a fundamental right. 44th Amendment Act repealed Article 19(1)(f), which provided right to fundamental property as a fundamental right. The fundamental right to hold, acquire, hold and dispose property. Article 31 was there earlier, which mandated that state should, before acquiring your private property, there should be a law, comment should be paid, and there should be for public purposes. So Article 31 was deleted, repealed by 44th Amendment Act. Article 19(1) clause F also repealed, removed by 44th Amendment Act. As of today, right to property is a constitutional right because 300A. Article 31, उसके अंदर जो था उन्होंने वो ट्रांसपोज कर दिया कहाँ पर 300A. Article 300A is a constitutional right. Your right to property is a constitutional right, a legal right and a human right, all three. Right to property, this entire debate, if you can see from the point of view of conflict between DPSP and fundamental rights, which we will see tomorrow. Right to property. The fundamental idea behind converting a fundamental right, which is right to property, to a constitutional right or legal right is that writ is not available. Writ under 32 is not available because fundamental right only writ, Supreme Court. But 2 to 6, there is another provision which means through writ you can go to Supreme Court or High Court. The article under which you can go to the High Court is 2 to 6. For High Court you can go to you can go through writ for enforcing your fundamental right as well as legal right, both. But 32 only fundamental right. So the scope of writ as far as High Court is concerned wider than the Supreme Court, because High Court can also see legal right. So my property is acquired, no compensation paid, very less compensation paid. Property demolished, demolition. Right to property is violated. Pension not paid. Property, pension, see, property can be tangible, intangible, lot of things can be there. Monetary, non-monetary, this fixed, check, all those things can be property. The implication of converting a fundamental right to a legal right means, number one, Article 32 option does not arise, does not exist. Article 2 to 6 is there. Then, the protection from legislative action with respect to property is very much limited. Legal right means what? Your right to property will depend upon law made by the Parliament. And Parliament, if it is fundamental right, then Article 13 will come into play. So the lawmaking power will be very limited. So because of legal right, the law-making power, there is huge width for the parliament or the state legislature for that matter to make law with respect to property. For deletion of private property as a property as a fundamental right essentially meant more power to the state, which is the government, the legislature, and less power to citizen. No guaranteed right to compensation. Because earlier Article 31A, Article 31 provided that compensation, adequate compensation should be given. Now it depends upon the law made by the parliament or the state legislature. Land Acquisition Act is there. There are multiple National Highway Authority Act is there. For those laws, whatever provisions are there with respect to compensation, they said, okay, we'll provide you compensation, but we will not provide you market-based compensation. There's a difference, na? Market rate and the actual rate which is shown as the government record. Market rate will be higher, way higher than the property on which it is registered. Simply means right to property has become legal right to constitutional right. It means that through an ordinary law, your right can be curtailed, restricted by the parliament or concerned state legislature. You don't have the guaranteed right to compensation. Although the Supreme Court has interpreted this provision in such a way that the compensation should be adequate. Let's say my property has 1 crore rupees and you are giving me only 10 lakh. This is unreasonable, arbitrary. This cannot be done. So adequate, sufficient compensation should be given. But there are two provisions in the Constitution. Part 3 of the where it is mandatory to provide compensation. Where if you are acquiring the land which is under the personal cultivation of an individual, then compensation should be paid. Article 31 clause A, open karo. Article 31A. Article 31A deals with what? Article 13(1)A, yes, deals with land acquisition in general. So whenever the government or the state by law acquires land or nationalizes some companies or take over the management of some companies, etc., if that law violates Article 14 and 19, still that law will not be called into question. If a law which is made to acquire a land, my land is acquired, your land is not acquired. So violation of Article 14. I have fundamental right to run a company, Article 19. But my company is nationalized by the government. So 14 violated, 19 violated. But what Article 31 says, even if the government is doing, or the parliament by law is doing, even if they violate, even if that law violates, what? 14 and 19, still the law is valid. 31A added into the Constitution by First Amendment Act. 31A added into the Constitution by First Amendment Act, later amended through multiple amendments. Article 31A says, it is necessary to provide compensation. Compensation when a land is acquired from an individual who is having personal possession of the cultivated land. Simply understand this. I am a farmer, very small land I have. I am cultivating it personally. My entire work, life depends upon that, and the state is acquiring it under 31A. So the state should pay compensation, adequate compensation to me. Mandatory. So right to property is a fundamental right for one group of people, that is personal cultivators. There is another group of people or institutions for which right to property is mandatory. That is, if you see Article 30 of the Constitution, minority educational institutions. If the property of minority educational institutions or minorities, not educational, minority institutions are acquired, then market-based compensation should be given to them. So that in the same area, in some other place, they can establish their own institution. So minority institutions and personal cultivators, to these people there are presence of fundamental rights to property. So if I say, right to property is a fundamental right for some eligible group of people as per the Constitution. Is it correct or not? Why not? Personal cultivators and this minority institutions. Fundamental right. So, Article 44th Amendment Act, which deleted 19(1)(f) and Article 31 did not mean that there is no fundamental right to property available in the Constitution. In fact, Article 30 dealing with minority institutions, that provision for compensation was added by 44th Amendment. Demolition are happening of institutions, mosques and other, even temples have been demolished, churches, in some instances, institutions, minority institutions, they are educational institutions and various other institutions are being, maybe they can be acquired for development others. But compensation, market-based compensation should be given to them, minority. Article 31A deals with acquisition of lands and etc. Article 31A is an exception to fundamental right because 1419, no problem. Are you getting or not what I am trying to say? But when a state legislature makes a law under 31A, violate 14 and 19, that law will become valid only when President gives assent. State can also make law for compulsory acquisition of land under 31A, provided state law gets assent from the President. Otherwise, will not. 31B of the Constitution deals with Schedule 9. 31B essentially means 31B provides for keeping or adding laws and regulations and others into a schedule known as Schedule 9 of the Constitution. What happened? Here? Back. Are you here? Tired? Drink some water. You should be happy, isn't it? Are you not happy? Why are you happy? Because you are learning something, I think, isn't it? I am making your life easy by explaining these things. So you should show that enthusiasm and energy. Don't look at the time and watch and drink some water if you want. चलें आगे. 31B added through First Amendment Act. Remember Chambakam Dorai Rajan and others. Yes, Chambakam Dorai Rajan, Reservation. Right. Similarly, in Punjab and Bihar, what happened? The state legislatures tried to bring law for land reform, acquisition, and others, which generally could not, which had to be protected. Some high courts of Punjab and Bihar have struck down these laws because it violated 19 and various other fundamental rights. So, Article 31A was introduced through First Amendment Act. They also introduced Article 31B. Essentially, through Article 31B, Schedule 9 was incorporated in the Constitution, Schedule 9. Essentially, what it did was, all those laws and regulations, remember, regulations, state can issue regulations. So, regulations and laws, if they are kept in Schedule 9, then they are immune from judicial review. Article 31A barred the judicial review of a law, even if the law violates 14 and 19. Article 31B bars judicial review of a law, even if it violates any of the fundamental rights. 14 and 19 is limited in 31A, 31B, Schedule 9, more scope. So, do you think that any law can be made by the Parliament or the concerned state legislature, and if it is kept in Schedule 9, then there is no judicial review, which means so far 284 laws and regulations have been included in Schedule 9, 284 so far. Which means any law can be made, any regulation can be made, and they can be placed in Schedule 9. And these laws and regulations can violate your fundamental right. Then what is the need for fundamental right? What is the need for Article 13? So it means that when you are saying that any law placed in Schedule 9 will be barred from judicial review, which means what? You are creating an unlimited government. Judicial review is an essential part. There will be no fundamental right then. Your property can be acquired, your land can be bought, whatever can be made. Reservation can be provided to 100%. Whatever can be done. The Supreme Court in Keshwananda Bharati, you know that the basic structure doctrine has been introduced. Later in one case, Vaman Rao case in 1981, Vaman Rao, in this case the Supreme Court held that the basic structure doctrine will be applicable to who? To all those laws made or the amendment made to the Constitution. Remember, basic structure doctrine, no, not laws. Basic structure doctrine is only applicable against amendment to the Constitution. The doctrine of basic structure cannot be used to determine the validity of a law. Law means Parliament made law, telecom law, criminal law, PMLA, UAPA, Citizenship Amendment Act. No. Basic structure doctrine only to determine whether the amendment is appropriate, valid or not. So basic structure doctrine is only a check on the unlimited amendability power of the Parliament, not law. This is clear for you. Now, Supreme Court in Vaman Rao said, all those amendments which are made after the Keshwananda Bharati, that is 24th April 1973, that's the date the basic structure doctrine was used. So after that, basic structure doctrine will be applicable. Tell me how Schedule 9 is amended. How Schedule 9 is amended?
Normally,
358. What the Parliament is doing? Parliament is enacting a law and keeping through the amendment in Schedule 9. This is what the Parliament doing? Isn't it? Amending Schedule 9, does it affect other parts of the Constitution in general? By amending or adding a law in Schedule 9, you are not doing anything with the substantial aspect of the Constitution. You are not amending Part 3. You are not removing judicial review. You are not dealing with Schedule 7, etc. The federal distribution of power. You are only amending Schedule 9 and adding this law. But what is the impact of this law? The impact of those laws which you are keeping in the Schedule 9 are directly affecting the fundamental rights of people. I am simply saying that the Supreme Court basic structure doctrine is only applicable to constitutional amendment. That was in the context of fundamental rights. So Parliament found out a way that we will not amend the fundamental rights and other important parts of the Constitution. What we will do is we create a system of Schedule 9 and we will enact normal laws. And the normal laws cannot be adjudicated through basic structure. And all these laws will be kept in Schedule 9. But ultimately these laws are violating a fundamental right. So if this practice is allowed, then there will be no use for Part 3. Are you getting what I am trying to say? That is why the Supreme Court in IR Coelho case, 2007, IR Coelho, Supreme Court has said that Fine, we understood your scheme of operation. We understand the intent behind it. Not this way, I am trying to dramatize it. Supreme Court invented a test known as effect and impact test. Test means what is a test? A test is something through which you evaluate something, you examine something, you understand something, scrutinize something. Effect and impact test. Here you are only amending Schedule 9, which is a very simple amendment. You are not bringing any large-scale amendment to the scheme of constitution. Schedules are appendices in general. So the major substantial part will be the body of the constitution. Schedules are peripheral parts, that is their schedule, appendices. So what the parliament is doing, they are only amending this appendix, which is a peripheral part. But what is the impact? Impact is very significant. Amendment is very simple. But the impact is very serious. Supreme Court said, all those laws which you have placed in Schedule 9 will be tested from the purview of Article 14, 19 and 21 of the Constitution. Because what is important is not the form of the amendment, but the impact and effect of the amendment. Schedule 9 is there, you added one entry, one law, that's it. But what is the impact and effect? Say same thing, impact and effect. Say same thing, effect and impact. Huge, significant impact on fundamental rights. So just because you place a law or a regulation in Schedule 9 does not immune it from judicial review. Judicial review is applicable. And only those laws which you kept after the basic structure doctrine will be looked into. Usse pehle wala nahi. 1973, 24 April, after that, we will apply this effect and impact test. So essentially, this, what is the case? Coelho brought judicial review in Schedule 9. Remember, as we are speaking, I think 74th Amendment. I'll see that, 74, 76, not able to clear it, interest. Tamil Nadu has brought a law which provided, I think, more than 60% reservation to OBCs. So you know that there is a reservation cap, in general 50%, something like that. This bill, this act of Tamil Nadu was in mid-90s. And later the parliament amended Schedule 9, kept this law in where? Schedule 9. This is challenge. The challenge is ongoing. Almost 2 decades, more than that, have passed. The court did not hear this case. What I am trying to say is that if this is accepted, that the Schedule 9 route is accepted, then the effect and impact of laws, regulation and keeping them in Schedule 9 will be very disastrous, serious for the rights of people. Basic structure said, doctrine said, there is a limitation for the amendability power of parliament. That is what basic structure. So why parliament wants to amend? Part 3 is the something which part 3 is what parliament wants to amend in general. So parliament say, okay, we are not amending part 3. We are only bringing law and we are putting in Schedule 9, which essentially is the same as amending and curtailing or restricting your fundamental right. 31B, First Amendment. 31A, First Amendment. 31C, we will study tomorrow. 25C, Article 25th Amendment Act and others. Article 20, 21, 22, 23, 23, 24, very easy. 23, this exploitation, forced labor. 24 deals with what? Child labor. No child below 14 years will be employed in factory. Something like that. Can you see Article 24? Are you tired? Give me 5 more minutes. No child
below the age of 14 years shall be employed to work in any factory or mine
any factory or mine.
or engage in any other organization.
Parliament made a law in 1980s. This law was replaced by another law. Child labor, Child and Adolescent Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 2016. This is a law as of today. Earlier, only child was there below age 14. This new law made two categories, child and adolescent. Adolescent means 14 to 18, adolescent. Below 14, child. So children are children cannot be employed. This act prohibits the employment of children below 14. But they can be employed where? In family-run enterprises. Family-run enterprises, they can be employed, that too after their school hours. Which means the child will go home, school in the morning, right? Will study, will become very tired and will come home and will help the family. Other children will go to tuition, they will go to parks, and these children will what? Help their family, and he will become very happy. Whatever he or she will have, eat, sleep, and tomorrow morning next go to school, again this routine. But anyway, children should help their parents. Family-run enterprises. 14 to 18 adolescents. There are the employment of adolescents are regulated by this act. There are some processes and hazardous industries where adolescent cannot be employed. But there is a total prohibition. Children can also this 14 years wala can also participate in reality shows. Reality. Why do you think they have provided this? Because the ministers and the bureaucrats, their children are participating, right? Acting this reality show. What is that reality show in Hindi? Singer, what is that singer? Indian Idol. Indian Idol, na? Ideally. But whatever that might be, but the person who drafted the law must have thought that, yes, my children are going there, I want them to be, this. So if I am drafting a law, then there should be some scope for my children and others. Whatever that might be, so reality show is also possible. But again, should not interfere in the education. Article 24. But child labor is a very significant issue, you know that, in India. 25, 26, easy, religion. Article 25 deals with the power, the citizens have the power for or the right of freedom of conscience. Freedom of conscience, that's one right given there. Freedom to profess, practice and propagate. This is a very significant issue from the point of view of mains because anti-conversion laws have been made by many states. Chhattisgarh government is trying to formulate anti-conversion laws. Anti-conversion laws have made the district collector a priest, chief priest in the district. Yes? From an administrator, the district collector became a theologian. Because without the person's, let's say, and the district collector also become the chief parent of the district. Because this live-in relationship and others, his or her in this Uttarakhand, permission is required. Whatever that might be. You have the fundamental right to religious affairs, practice, profess and propagate, but remember, not absolute. It can be restricted through this public order, morality and health, three ground and other portions of the constitution. Remember, there is a test which the Supreme Court has used, essential religious test, ERP, to find out whether your right to religion can be prohibited by the state or not. What is the extent of intervention of the state in religious affairs of individuals? If that practice of my religion is essential to my religion, then the intervention of the state is very limited. State can regulate but cannot prohibit. I am taking the example of Karnataka, hijab. Whether wearing of hijab is the essential religious practice of Islam. If it is so, then the government cannot prohibit or ban hijab. Cannot ban it. They can regulate. In COVID-19, almost all the churches, temples, mosques and religious places have been shut down. But what if my essential religious practice of my religion is that every day 4 a.m. in the morning, as per my religious injunction, I should pray, I should worship through a proper procedure. A ritual should be carried out every day, 4 a.m. for the deity. That is my religion, that is my religious practice. But these religious practices have been what? Stopped, prohibited because of COVID-19, because the temples were shut down. But what if COVID-19 restrictions are removed? Can the government then say that you will not do this ritual in 4 a.m.? They cannot do that. They can regulate, cannot prohibit. The point I am trying to make is this. What the state can prohibit, what they cannot prohibit will be decided on a test or a doctrine, that is essential religious test or essential religious practice. Those practices which are essential to my religion cannot be prohibited or banned by the state by invoking public order, morality, health or other aspect of part 3 of the Constitution. If wearing of hijab is my essential religious practice, then you cannot prohibit or ban it. You can regulate it. You can say size of the hijab might be this. Whatever that might be, regulation can be there. You cannot prohibit it. Similarly, so in other religion, wearing this turban or let's say kirpan is right guaranteed by Article 25 of the Constitution. So multiple religions have their own multiple essential practices. Essential practices mean without those practices, the religion will not be the religion. It will lose its identity. Like the basic structure, identity of the Constitution. Similarly, identity of the religion, essential religious practice. So
how can court
that's a very, very difficult issue because as we are speaking, the essential religious practice is going to be anyway, the problem of ERP is that it depends upon the personal understanding of the judge. The judges are not the scholars of religion. They are scholars of law. So their understanding will be limited. So depending upon the individual understanding, perception or temperament or philosophy, or whether the judge having more secular orientation or not, or whether the judge wants some post-retirement jobs after retirement. Depending upon that, depending upon that, they will decide. The point is that what is essential, what is non-essential will be depending upon the individual judge. There are no laid down practices. There are few, but these are what? Evolving. That is why we are saying the essential religious practices. In hijab case, what happened? The Karnataka High Court said that 3-judge bench. They said hijab is not an essential religious practice of the Islam community. But the people said that the community which were following hijab, they said no, it is. But the judges said no. The Chief Justice of the Karnataka High Court is the Law Commission of India today. Who gave the verdict? The Supreme Court of India, this judgment was challenged in Supreme Court. One judge said that, struck down the order of the government of Karnataka. Another judge upheld. The judge which upheld is the chairman of the New Delhi Arbitration Council in India. First chairman, appointed I think for 5 years. Whatever that might be, judges should be appointed, isn't it, in post-retirement jobs. But anyway, the point I am trying to make is that judges cannot use this philosophy, ERP, because it depends upon their whims, fancies, whatever that might be understanding. They are not religious scholars. That is why you must be knowing about the Sabarimala. Sabarimala, what happened? Women under this age, menstruation age, they wanted to enter. Supreme Court said yes. The people who were managing that temple, Sabarimala, they said, not allowing women in this particular age bracket is the essential religious practice of us. So one is saying essential, one is saying not. This way. So this test requires change. That is why I think a 7-judge bench or 9-judge bench will be constituted to discuss what is the extent of ERP, how we can reach that, whether there is a possible alternative to this ERP, etc., etc. So essential religious practice will be decided as of now. It is used to find out what is essential to religion or not. Article 26 of the Constitution deals with religious rights of institutions. 25 in general, individuals, 26 institution and community. the religious community or an institution has the fundamental right to manage their own affairs. But these are again not absolute. Public order, health and morality, only three, through which it can be regulated. So essentially religious practice can be used to understand, adjudicate issues arising from 25 and 26. 27 and 28 very easy. 27 deals with taxation. Simply says that you cannot introduce a tax specifically to promote a religion. So tax cannot be introduced, tax cannot be imposed specifically to promote one religion, A, B or C. But tax money can be used to promote all the religion. Secularism, 70, right? 28 deals with instruction in schools. There are some educational institutions where instructions are prohibited. If the institution is wholly maintained by the state, essentially means state institution, government institution, religious instruction is prohibited. If the institution is administered by the state but established under an endowment, simply means that the government through a notification or a parliament or the state legislature through a law can establish an institution for promotion of particular religion. For that, in that institution, religious institution can be, there are multiple institutions like Sanskrit universities have been set up by through law or various other approaches by the state governments or the parliament for that matter. In their religious, Buddhist institutions, Hindu institutions, etc., can be set up. So there, even they are administered by the government, religious instruction is permitted. There are two other institutions where there is voluntary. But remember, if the institution is neither recognized by the state, because recognition is necessary, isn't it? 10th or 12th, whatever that might be recognition. If the institution is not recognized, nor receiving any aid from the government, then essentially they can carry out religious instruction. Simply means I am a private institution. I don't want any recognition from the government. I don't want any finance from you. So I am setting up for the religious education. That you can do. 29 and 30. Article 29 deals with what? Not minority, section of people, which means cultural educational rights of section of people, which is available to both majority as well as minority. For both, the rights under 29 is available. The word is section of people. Although word minority might have been used, it is not limited to minority. Unlike Article 30. Article 30 deals with only minority educational institutions. Their rights to set up educational institutions. Article 30 only deals with minority educational institutions, MEIs. Article 29 deals with majority or minority. Both cultural educational rights. Minorities are not defined. Religious minorities are not defined properly, neither in the Constitution or in any law. National Minority Commission Act, NMC, NCM, National Commission for Minorities Act 1992, enacted by the Parliament. For what? For enhancing or promoting the interest of minorities. NCM Act does not define minority. It simply says minorities are those who are notified as by the central government. Central government has notified 6 minorities. We are dealing with religious minorities. 6. You know that 6. The latest one was Jain, 2014. How many minorities? Muslims, Christians, Jain, Buddhist, Parsi or Zoroastrian. There is one more. Sikh. Very good. Sikh. Minorities, religious minorities are identified nationwide. National religious minority. Linguistic minority. Minorities can also be linguistic because Article 30 is not only religious minority. Article 30 also deals with linguistic minority. Linguistic minorities are identified state-wise. So me, speaking Malayalam in Delhi, is a linguistic minority. So Article 30 available to me or my organization. Marathi speaking people, let's say Bengali speaking people in Delhi. Let's say the people from Rajasthan working in Tamil Nadu or some other place. Minority. linguistic minority, language-based minority, state-wise. Religious-based minority, nationwide, nationwide. But remember, the Supreme Court of India, in TMA Pai case, there is a case in which the Supreme Court ordered that religious minority should also be identified state-wise. As we are speaking, cases are going on in the Supreme Court. People went to Supreme Court saying that the central government did not implement your order. Why? You said religious minority should be identified state-wise, but still the government is following the original one. As we are speaking, the Supreme Court has reserved the order on the status of AMU, Aligarh Muslim University. Aligarh Muslim University, whether it is a minority institution or not. The court earlier ordered that AMU is not a minority institution because it was an institution set up by the central government. But later, Parliament brought an law or amended a law for that matter and made the AMU as a minority. This has been challenged. So whether a central university can be a minority institution is something the Supreme Court will decide. Right? AMU. National Commission for Minority. 1 + 1 + 5 membership. 1 chairman, 1 vice chairman, 5 members. All are from minority. Likhna nahi hai. It seems that I am the one who is revising. 1 chairman, 1 vice chairman plus 5 members appointed by the central government. I am stressing on minority because this is an issue which is going on. They can frame question on this. National Commission for Minorities. 1 + 1 + 5. 1 chairman, office will be held for 3 years, appointed by the central government. There is another institution known as National Commission for Minority Education Institution, NCMEI. National Commission for Minority Educational Institutions, NCMEI, a statutory body which is different from NCM. The fundamental duty of this body is to grant minority status to institutions. To grant minority status to educational institutions. Let's say I am a Christian, so I am setting up an institution. So there should be recognition, certification. So this National Commission for Minority Educational Institution will deal with recognition of minority educational institutions. It can be both religious as well as linguistic. But in general, this NCM deals with religious minority. NCMEI can be deal with both religious as well as linguistic minority. The chairman of this NCMEI is a retired High Court judge, is a chairman of this. Don't worry, leave it. The NCM generally has an advisory function. National Commission of Minorities. Advisory function. Promote the development of minorities. Suggest policies and programs to the central government. Their job is not to identify minorities or to notify minorities. Remember this. The central government that will do. Central government can take advice from them. Not binding, not mandatory. Are you understand what I am trying to say? The statement is like this. The National Commission for Minority identifies and notifies the religious minorities in India. Incorrect. The National Commission for Minorities Act 1992 defines the term minority comprehensively. Incorrect. It defines, it says minorities are those which are notified by the federal government, not comprehensively. Okay? 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. 35 we did? 35 we did, na? Because the power of Parliament to make law. 34 we did. 34 was the indemnity. 33 was the restriction of fundamental rights. 32 we'll do tomorrow. Writs we'll do that. 31 abolished. 31A, 31B, 31C. 31C we'll do when we study DPSP and fundamental DPSP. 29, 30 we studied, and 27, 28, 25, 26, you should go and read the Lakshmikants and whatever notes you have. Right. What is the time? 8:30. Do you have time? Yes. Do one thing. You can take this and solve in your home if you want. Yes. Online student? हाँ तो ये अभी चाहिए ये वाला. Okay. What I am doing is I am trying to distribute the previous year's questions and other MCQs from those parts which we studied, and if at all there are some areas which we have not touched, while it is being discussed tomorrow, we will cover them. Right. And till 16, 17, something came into my mind. I'm unable to recollect it. Anyway, don't worry. Take this. Two minutes, one second. What is that? EPL 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yes, preventive detention. Article 20. 21 is easy. 21. Remember one thing. No fundamental right to marry. Same-sex marriage judgment, Supreme Court. Same-sex marriage judgment, Supreme Court, 5-judge bench. Yes. The Supreme Court then in that said, there is no fundamental right to marry. Remember. Whether you are heterosexual or homosexual, whatever that might be, same sex, no fundamental right to marry. Remember this. You don't have fundamental right to marry. If you don't have fundamental right to marry, then what? The state can even prohibit or regulate whatever that they can do. You may have a legal right because there is a law, and you have the personal laws, or the Special Marriage Act. Same-sex marriage. Those couples from same sex, they can marry only when a law is made by the Parliament. As of now, no law is made. They can live together. Privacy is there. This Article 370, Section 370 judgment, nowadays Johar and others are there. So you can, homosexual couples can stay together, but they cannot marry. Heterosexual couples can marry, but it is regulated. No fundamental right to marry. Because marriage is something which is a product of legislation or society for that matter. Whatever that might be, remember this. No fundamental right to marry. Remember, so this is judgment of the Supreme Court, Article 21. Article 21 and 19 applicable against private sector also. Kaushal Kishore. 21 applicable and 19 applicable against private sector. Same-sex marriage. You have this judgment, there was earlier judgment, you have the fundamental right to marry a person of your own choice. UPSC asked. Fundamental right to marry a person of your own choice. It was there because one judgment was there, Supreme Court, but it's a very, I think 2-judge bench or 3-judge bench. It's a constitutional judge bench. So as of now, the law stands, but no fundamental right to marry. Right? Anyway, Article 21 applicable to private sector. Article 19 applicable to private sector, which means writ is enforceable against private sector. Violation of Article 19, 21 through either the High Court or the Supreme Court. We'll deal with this Kaushal Kishore later because there are some. Okay, one more thing. Article 19, clause 1A. Article 19, 1, clause A deals with freedom of speech and expression. Article 19, clause 2 deals with what? Restriction. The question arose in this case, Kaushal Kishore. The question was this: whether there should be additional grounds. Whether there should be additional grounds which should be there, upon which your freedom of speech can be restricted. There are grounds in Article 19 Clause 2 we discussed. Should there be additional grounds? The court said no. There is no need for additional ground. So, the restriction under 19 Clause 2 are exhaustive. Are you getting exhaustive means as of now exhaustive until unless Parliament amends it. Because the fundamental idea was that a minister, public functionary, their freedom of speech and expression, is it similar to the freedom of speech and expression of the citizen? Whether there should be more restriction on the freedom of speech and expression of ministers and public functionary, because they are responsible people. Whatever they say will have a lot of impact. Whether there should be additional grounds of restriction, especially to these categories, Supreme Court said no. This is something I want to explain. Then we will deal with constitutional later also. There are a few other things. Article 20, 22 we will deal tomorrow. Preventive detention and self-incrimination, etc., etc. Tomorrow we will also deal with DPSP and fundamental duties. Right. Anything you want to ask, online students? Thank you so much. Although I would like to conclude the class at 7 p.m. 5 to 7 is the timing, isn't it?
Article 55 is ready to.
Oh, okay, yes, this point, yes. Article 16. Reservation given in for public employment should not undermine efficiency in administration. So, Article 16 Clause 4, if you see, says, Article 16 Clause 4 says that, do you have Article 64? Upper 64. 16 Clause 4, 16. Clause 4. Simply means 16 Clause 4 provides for reservation to scheduled caste and backward classes. This is the word it is used. Backward classes. Remember, as we are speaking, ठीक है, अभी याद आ गया. Whether those individuals, scheduled caste especially, if they convert from Hinduism to some other religion, whether they are eligible for the reservation? If they are converting from Hinduism to Sikhism or Buddhism, they are eligible. Supreme Court has the government of India has established a committee known as Balakrishnan Committee, to decide whether it should be extended to other people who are converting to other religion, Christianity and Islam and others. So now it is available to Hinduism, yes, Sikhism and Buddhism. I am an SC, converting from this to Sikhism, I have the reservation. Okay? Rangana Mishra Commission was set up in I think early 2000, which recommended that reservation would be extended to those people who are converting from Hinduism to other religion also, which means Christianity and Islam and others. But the government of India seems to have a different mind. That is why they set up a different committee. 16 Clause 4 essentially says reservation. Supreme Court in Indira Sahni judgment, Indira Sahni 1992, reservation for OBCs have been challenged. So, along with OBC, the Supreme Court has, because the backward class of citizen is the word which is used. So, the judgment is also applicable to 16 Clause 4, which means essentially SC and ST also and others. 16 Clause 4 should be read with 335. 335 says efficiency in administration, which means the reservation which you are providing through reduction of qualifying mark and other affirmative action should not undermine the efficiency. What is the meaning of efficiency? Efficiency means if you are able to do something properly, then you are efficient. Efficiency of administration depends upon quality, merit. So, if meritorious people are not entering into administration because of reservation, then efficiency will be undermined. So, there should be a balance between 16 Clause 4 and 335. But efficiency in administration is not defined. Okay? In any case, efficiency has now nothing to do with merit. In fact, this argument of merit, reservation, etc. has gone once EWS reservation is given. Because generally, the anti-reservation brigade used to be from the general category students, isn't it? Now they have the reservation, 10%. So, khatam ho gaya pura debate. But anyway, 16 Clause 4 deals with reservation, 335 deals with efficiency. So, when you are providing reservation, it should undermine the efficiency of administration. This is the essence of it. Are you understanding what I am trying to say? Indira Sahni judgment, Supreme Court said, what? There should be no reservation in promotion. The Parliament enacted 77th Amendment Act, which said there will be reservation in promotion. Parliament enacted 85th Amendment Act, because Indira Sahni said there should not be consequential seniority. What is consequential seniority? Time. Me, I am an SC, and let's say you are general. We ended in service similarly, same time. But because of I am SC, I got accelerated promotion. I became promoted. No, right? And let's say I am in this position, promoter position for 3 years, 2 or whatever. And the person got promoted. On elevate. I am a junior. He is my senior. Same rank. But because I am a SC, I got promoted. Right? After some years, he also got promoted. And now we are both working in same rank. But as per seniority, he is senior. But the term consequential seniority means I will be deemed as a senior person, although this person has longer period of service. Are you able to understand? Consequential seniority. Yes or no? Indira Sahni judgment again said there should not be carry forward, which means इस साल में जितना है उस साल में अगले साल में नहीं करना है. Carry forward rule. The government of Parliament enacted 81st Amendment Act to nullify this. Right? 81st Amendment Act. 81st Amendment Act said there will be carry forward, which means even the vacancy is not filled in this year, it can be filled next year. Even if it violates 50%, no, does not matter. So there is consequential seniority, there is written promotion. So in promotion only for SC and STs, not for OBC and others. So in promotion is not applicable to creamy layer in SC and ST. Creamy layer, that advanced section in SC and ST, for them, reservation promotion is not applicable. Reservation promotion is not a fundamental right. Reservation is not a fundamental right. In order to get reservation in promotion, 2 criteria should be satisfied. Number 1, you should be inadequately represented. Your community or caste should be inadequately represented in the concerned service. Number 2, balance between 16:4 and 3:3 efficiency. ठीक है? चलो. Had this been a foundation batch, then it would have been very easy, isn't it? Now we are dealing with only 10 classes, etc. Very difficult. But again, I am trying to do my best for you. Should also read. Come read the fundamental rights chapter from Lakshmika and then your note before coming to the